This video was made thanks to this awesome request. Thank you for the title suggestion, and happy watching.
Before we dive into the video, let's first get to know the legendary Monkey King himself, Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong, also famously known as the Monkey King, is one of the most iconic figures in Chinese mythology and the central protagonist of the classic 16th century novel Journey to the West. He is the ultimate trickster hero. Born from a mystical stone, Wukong possesses godlike strength, immortality, and a genius-level intellect. He is most famous for his signature weapon, the Ruyi Jingu Bang, a magical staff that can shrink to the size of a needle or grow to reach the heavens. On top of that, he mastered 72 transformations, allowing him to change into anything from animals to objects, and he can travel thousands of miles with a single leap on his cloud somersault. What truly defines him, however, is his rebellious spirit. He famously defied the heavens, challenged the Jade Emperor, and outsmarted gods and demons alike. His mix of immense power, mischievous wit, and refusal to bow to authority makes him one of the most beloved and feared figures in folklore, and the perfect candidate to stir up absolute chaos in any world he enters.
Welcome to FI's Recap channel, the place where we break down the most captivating stories hidden within the archives. We all know the official stories, but have you ever wondered, what if the hero took a different path? What if a simple misunderstanding changed everything we thought we knew? Today, we're diving deep into a world where the lines between reality and fiction blur, exploring a look that will keep you guessing until the very end. Before we start, if you love deep dives into alternate universes and epic character journeys, don't forget to subscribe for your weekly dose of the best fanfiction recaps on the internet. Now, let's get into the story.
The sky above the Jura Great Forest was unusually quiet. There were no birds, no insects, even the monsters that normally wandered between the trees had stopped moving. For several seconds, the entire forest seemed frozen. Then the mountain at the center of the forest trembled. Crack! A thin fracture appeared across the surface of a massive stone at the summit. Another crack followed, then another. The stone began to glow. Golden light leaked through the cracks, spreading across the mountain-like veins. The surrounding Magicules were drawn toward it, forming a massive spiral above the peak. The pressure became so intense that several weaker monsters collapsed unconscious. Far below, wolves raised their heads toward the mountain. Orcs stopped their work. High-level monsters instinctively moved away from the area. Something was awakening. The stone suddenly shattered. Boom! A wave of golden energy exploded from the summit. Clouds were pushed away from the mountain, exposing a clear blue sky. Trees hundreds of meters below bent violently under the pressure. At the center of the destruction stood a single figure. He was short compared to most powerful monsters in the forest, yet the presence surrounding him was overwhelming. Golden fur covered parts of his body. His long brown hair moved freely in the wind, while a pair of sharp golden eyes slowly opened. The figure looked around. He remained silent for several seconds. His eyes narrowed. "This isn't heaven." His voice was calm. He lifted one hand and examined it. The body was familiar, human-like, but not entirely human. A long tail moved behind him. He touched his chest, then looked toward the endless forest below. The memories came back gradually. The stone, the heavenly palace, the battles, the demons, the celestial soldiers, the journey west, the golden staff, and finally, the image of a girl sitting quietly in front of a gunji board. Kamugi. His expression changed slightly. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he closed his eyes. When they opened again, the confusion had disappeared. He was Sun Wukong, the great sage equal to heaven, the Monkey King, and somehow, he had been given another life. A strange sensation suddenly spread through his body. Magicules. He could feel them everywhere. They flowed through the air like an invisible river. Wukong raised his hand and slowly clenched his fingers. So this world has a different energy. A faint golden aura appeared around his body. He immediately noticed something else. His strength had not disappeared. If anything, his body felt more responsive than before. He jumped. The ground beneath his feet shattered. Boom! Wukong disappeared from the summit. A moment later, he appeared several hundred meters away in midair. His eyes widened slightly. He looked down. He landed on a tree branch without making it move. Then he smiled. This place might actually be interesting. A strange voice suddenly echoed inside his mind. Unique existence detected. Analyzing spiritual structure. Analyzing accumulated immortality. Analyzing transformation ability. Wukong tilted his head. Who's talking? There was no answer. Instead, a translucent screen of information appeared in front of him. Name: Sun Wukong. Species: unknown. Classification: immortal spiritual lifeform. Energy source: Magicules. Unique characteristics detected: multiple immortality factors, transformation, clone creation, extreme physical ability. Wukong stared at the information. Then he scratched his cheek. What a strange world. He waved his hand. The screen disappeared. His attention shifted toward the forest. Something was approaching. Several large monsters were moving through the trees. Their footsteps were heavy. Thud, thud, thud. A group of horned beasts emerged from between the trees. They immediately noticed Wukong. The largest one roared, "Roar!" The other monsters charged. Wukong looked at them. He didn't move. The first monster swung its massive claw. Wukong leaned backward. The claw passed directly above his face. He stepped forward and tapped the monster's forehead with one finger. Sit. Boom. The monster was launched backward. It crashed through several trees before stopping. The others froze. Wukong smiled. Anyone else? The monsters slowly backed away. None of them dared to attack. Wukong laughed. Smart. He jumped down from the tree and continued walking. He had no idea where he was. He didn't know which country ruled this forest. He didn't know what kind of monsters lived here. He didn't even know why he had been brought to this world. But none of those questions bothered him. He had been trapped in strange situations before. He had fought heavenly armies before. He had crossed impossible distances before. A new world wasn't frightening. It was simply new. Wukong suddenly stopped. His golden eyes focused on the horizon. Something powerful was moving in the distance. Not a normal monster. Not even an ordinary demon. The energy was faint, but his eyes could see it clearly. Wukong grinned. Now that's interesting. He reached behind his back. His fingers closed around an invisible object. A golden staff materialized in his hand. The Ruyi Jingu bang. He spun it once. The staff struck the ground. Crack. A small crater formed beneath his feet. Wukong rested the staff against his shoulder. Let's see what kind of world this is. Then he jumped. A golden cloud appeared beneath his feet. Jindou Yun. The cloud shot forward like lightning. Boom. Wukong disappeared beyond the trees, leaving only a trail of golden Magicules behind. Far away, several monsters looked toward the sky. They had no idea what had just appeared in the Jura Great Forest. But before the day ended, rumors of a strange golden monkey riding a cloud would begin spreading through the forest. And somewhere in Tempest, a certain slime would soon receive a report about an unknown individual whose energy signature made no sense. The great sage equal to heaven had arrived in the world of Tensura. The golden cloud carried Wukong deeper into the Jura Great Forest. He sat casually on top of it, resting his chin on the end of the Ruyi Jingu bang. Below him, the forest stretched endlessly. Rivers crossed between enormous trees. Strange monsters moved through the undergrowth. Some possessed enough Magicules to make ordinary humans collapse just by approaching them. Wukong watched everything. His golden pupils moved from one creature to another. He could see the Magicules flowing through their bodies. He could see the structure of their souls. He could even see the difference between physical energy and spiritual energy. Interesting. He closed one eye. The world immediately changed. The forest disappeared beneath layers of information. Magicules became streams of energy. Living creatures became complicated structures of flesh, soul, and magic. Even the air itself contained traces of energy. Wukong opened both eyes. These eyes have become even more useful. A sudden voice sounded inside his mind. Analysis complete. Compatibility with world system confirmed. Integrating foreign abilities. Wukong raised an eyebrow. Again, the strange voice continued. Multiple immortality factors detected. Transformation technique detected. Clone creation detected. Cloud movement technique detected. Weapon transformation detected. Spiritual perception detected. Combat adaptation detected. Integrating abilities into a unified skill structure. Wukong scratched his ear. You're quite talkative. The voice ignored him. Integration complete. Unique skill has been created. A golden symbol appeared in front of him. Unique skill. Heavenly Sage, Wukong. Wukong stared at it. Heavenly Sage. He tapped the floating symbol. Information immediately entered his mind. The skill contained several abilities. 72 transformations. It allowed him to freely alter his physical form, reproduce the appearance and biological characteristics of other creatures, and adjust his body according to the situation. Golden pupils. His eyes could perceive illusions, magical structures, spiritual bodies, energy flows, and weaknesses within an opponent's abilities. Hair clone. Every strand of his hair could become an independent clone. The clones possessed a portion of his power and could wield copies of the Ruyi Jingu Bang. Immortal body. His accumulated immortality had been converted into an extraordinary resistance against physical destruction, spiritual attacks, poison, aging, and many forms of magical interference. Jindou Yun. His golden cloud could travel at tremendous speed while carrying his body or other objects. And finally, heavenly combat analysis. Wukong could analyze an opponent during battle and continuously adjust his movements to counter their techniques. He smiled. Not bad. He dismissed the information and continued riding the cloud. Then something caught his attention. A large bird flew toward him. Its wings were covered in dark scales. The monster released a sharp cry and opened its mouth. A sphere of fire formed inside its throat. Wukong looked at it. You want to fight? The bird fired. Boom. A pillar of flame swallowed the cloud. The monster spread its wings triumphantly. But its expression immediately changed. Wukong emerged from the flames without a scratch. His clothes weren't even burned. He stood on the cloud with his arms crossed. Too slow. The bird screeched and attacked again. Wukong disappeared. The monster looked around. Nothing. Then, tap. Wukong was sitting on its head. You're quite large. The bird panicked and flew wildly through the sky. Wukong laughed. Calm down. He patted its head. The monster suddenly lost consciousness from the pressure of his aura and began falling. Wukong grabbed its tail. Oops. He pulled it back onto the cloud. The bird remained unconscious. Wukong examined it with his golden pupils. Its magicules were flowing rapidly. He could see its unique biological structure. A thought entered his mind. He wondered what would happen if he ate a creature from this world. In his previous existence, consuming powerful beings had allowed him to acquire their abilities. Perhaps the same principle would work here. Wukong placed his hand against the bird. The skill immediately responded. Target analyzed. Compatible energy detected. Assimilation possible. Wukong's eyes narrowed. So that's how it works. He withdrew his hand. He wasn't interested in eating the bird merely to test a theory. Instead, he released it. The monster slowly regained consciousness and flew away as quickly as possible. Wukong watched it disappear. This world has plenty of interesting abilities. He sat down again, but before he could continue, the golden symbol of his skill suddenly appeared. Warning. Unknown energy detected. Wukong's expression became serious. His golden pupils turned toward the distant horizon. Something was approaching. The presence was much stronger than the monsters he had encountered earlier. The forest became silent. Even the birds stopped singing. Wukong slowly stood. The Ruyi Jingu Bang appeared in his hand. Finally, a dark figure emerged between the trees. It was a massive monster with 4 arms and a body covered in thick armor. Its Magicules were dense enough to distort the surrounding air. The monster stared at Wukong. Then it roared, "Roar!" Wukong smiled. "You look stronger." The monster charged. The ground exploded beneath its feet. Boom! Its fist came directly toward Wukong's face. Wukong raised one hand. The fist stopped. The monster's eyes widened. Wukong's feet remained firmly planted on the ground. His golden pupils examined every part of the monster's body. Analysis complete. Physical strength. High. Defensive structure. Concentrated around the chest. Magical energy. Unstable. Attack pattern. Straightforward. Wukong sighed. "You're powerful, but you're too simple." He twisted the monster's wrist. The creature was thrown over his shoulder. Boom! It crashed into the ground. Before it could recover, Wukong placed the tip of his staff against its chest. Enough. The monster froze. Wukong lowered his weapon. He wasn't interested in killing something that had already lost. The creature slowly lowered its head. Wukong smiled. Good. He turned toward the forest. The unique skill inside his soul continued analyzing everything around him. It was adapting to the laws of this world. And Wukong was beginning to understand something important. The world of Tensura wasn't merely filled with powerful monsters. It had a system capable of recognizing his abilities, restructuring them, and turning them into skills. That meant his strength could continue evolving. Wukong looked at his golden hand. A faint light gathered around his fingers. He clenched his fist. Then let's see how far this system can take me. He stepped onto the golden cloud again. The Jindou Yun rose into the sky. As Wukong disappeared beyond the treetops, the unique skill remained active inside his soul. Unique skill. Heavenly Sage, Wukong. Its first evolution had begun. And the world had not yet realized what kind of monster had just entered its domain. Wukong had been in the Jura Great Forest for 3 days. During that time, he had learned several things. First, the forest was enormous. Second, there were far more monsters here than he had expected. And third, he was getting hungry. Wukong sat on a thick branch, staring at a cluster of red fruits growing on a tree below. The fruits were larger than ordinary peaches, with faint golden patterns covering their skin. Each one released a dense amount of Magicules. His golden pupils immediately analyzed them. Rare magical fruit detected. High Magicule concentration. Effects. Accelerated energy recovery. Enhanced physical vitality. Increased resistance to magical exhaustion. Wukong's eyes brightened. Peaches. He jumped from the branch. A moment later, he landed beside the tree. He picked one. The moment his fingers touched it, the fruit trembled slightly. Wukong looked at it suspiciously. "You're not poisonous, are you?" His golden pupils activated. Nothing dangerous appeared. He took a bite. Crunch. His eyes widened. Delicious. He finished the peach in several bites. Then he looked at the tree. There were dozens more. Wukong grinned. "Well, there's no reason to leave them here." He climbed the tree. 1 peach became 5. 5 became 20. Soon, Wukong was carrying an enormous pile of fruit under one arm. Then he noticed another tree. Then another. Then an entire valley filled with them. Wukong stared. His tail slowly moved behind him. This forest has been hiding quite a treasure. He immediately started harvesting. Within an hour, the entire valley had been emptied. Wukong sat on top of a pile of peaches, happily eating another one. Unfortunately, he had failed to notice the warning signs surrounding the valley. Large stones marked the boundaries. Strange magical barriers surrounded the trees. And several wooden signs had been placed around the area. They all carried the same message. Restricted area. Wukong looked at one of the signs. He tilted his head. What does that mean? He shrugged. Probably nothing important. A loud horn suddenly echoed through the valley. Toot. Wukong looked up. Several monsters appeared between the trees. They wore crude armor and carried spears. Behind them came a much larger monster covered in dark green scales. It stared at the empty valley. Then it stared at Wukong. Then it looked at the enormous pile of peaches. Its face turned pale. You. Wukong pointed at himself. Me. You stole the sacred peaches. Wukong looked at the pile. Then at the monster. These. Yes. Oh. Wukong took another bite. Crunch. The monster's eye twitched. Put that down. Wukong swallowed. No. The monster's expression became furious. You have no idea what you've done. Wukong looked around. I ate some fruit. Those fruits are protected by our tribe. Then your tribe should have picked them sooner. The guards raised their weapons. Several magic circles appeared behind them. Wukong sighed. So that's how this is going to go. The large monster raised its hand. Capture him. The guards charged. Wukong disappeared. One guard suddenly felt something tap his shoulder. He turned. Wukong was standing behind him. Boo! The guard screamed. Wukong kicked him lightly. Boom! The monster flew across the valley. Another guard attacked from the side. Wukong bent backward, allowing the spear to pass above his face. He grabbed the shaft. Mine. He pulled. The guard flew forward. Wukong caught him by the back of his armor and gently placed him on the ground. Another monster swung its axe. Wukong caught the blade between two fingers. The monster froze. Wukong looked at the axe. Poor craftsmanship. He flicked it. Crack. The axe broke in half. The monster stared at the weapon. Wukong tapped its forehead. Next. Within seconds, the entire group was lying on the ground. None of them were seriously injured. The large monster finally stepped forward. Its body became covered in dark magicules. You'll regret humiliating us. Wukong smiled. You're stronger than the others. The monster disappeared. Boom. Its fist came toward Wukong's stomach. Wukong blocked it with his forearm. The impact sent a shockwave through the valley. Leaves flew into the air. Wukong's feet slid backward several meters. His smile widened. Now this is more interesting. The monster attacked again. Left, right, uppercut, kick. Every movement was powerful, but Wukong's golden pupils followed everything. Attack pattern analyzed. Movement prediction complete. Wukong stepped between the attacks. He grabbed the monster's arm. Then its shoulder. Then its leg. In one smooth movement, he threw it into the ground. Boom. The monster struggled to stand. Wukong appeared above it. The Ruyi Jingu bang rested against its shoulder. Stay down. The monster stared at him. It finally understood. This creature wasn't simply another powerful monster. It couldn't even perceive his movements properly. Wukong lowered the staff. Tell me something. The monster remained silent. Who owns this forest? The forest belongs to no single ruler. Wukong raised an eyebrow. No ruler. There are several territories and powerful monsters throughout Jura. Wukong looked toward the distant forest. Interesting. The monster continued. There is also a powerful monster nation nearby. Wukong smiled. A monster nation? Yes. Tempest. The name caught his attention. Tempest. He repeated it once. Then he looked at the peaches. Does Tempest have food? The monster blinked. What? Food? Probably. Wukong nodded. Then I'll visit. The monster stared at him in disbelief. You just stole our sacred peaches and defeated our entire patrol. You're going to visit Tempest? Wukong picked up another peach. Yes. He took a bite. Crunch. Perhaps they have better ones. The monster nearly collapsed from frustration. Wukong laughed. He gathered the remaining peaches into a large sack. Then he stepped onto his golden cloud. Before leaving, he looked down at the defeated guards. Don't worry. I'll return the seeds. The guards looked confused. Wukong smiled. Eventually, the Jindou Yun shot into the sky. Boom. He disappeared between the clouds. Far below, the monsters watched him leave. One of them slowly turned toward their leader. What should we do? The leader remained silent for several seconds. Then he looked at the empty valley. We report this immediately. Meanwhile, Wukong flew toward the direction of Tempest. He ate another peach while riding the cloud. His golden pupils suddenly activated. A distant city appeared on the horizon. Large walls. Busy streets. Monsters walking alongside one another. Smoke rising from cooking houses. Wukong's eyes lit up. So that's Tempest. He leaned forward. The golden cloud accelerated, and somewhere inside the city, the residents of Tempest had no idea that a troublesome guest was already approaching their gates with an entire sack of stolen sacred peaches. Wukong approached Tempest without slowing down. From above, the city looked surprisingly peaceful. Monsters walked through the streets carrying supplies. Merchants shouted about their goods. Several goblins pushed carts while lizardmen and dwarves moved between the buildings. Wukong scratched his chin. This place is much more organized than I expected. He lowered the Jindou yun. The moment he reached the outer wall, several guards noticed him. Who is that? Something is flying toward the city. Get ready. Wukong landed directly in front of the gate. The golden cloud vanished beneath his feet. Several guards raised their weapons. Wukong looked at them. Relax. He isn't here to fight. One of the guards stared at the sack hanging over Wukong's shoulder. What's in there? Wukong smiled. Peaches. The guard narrowed his eyes. Where did you get them? Wukong thought for a moment. From a tree. Whose tree? Does it matter? The guards immediately became suspicious. Before anyone could say anything else, a shadow appeared behind Wukong. A black figure stepped out from the darkness. Sue. His eyes remained fixed on the strange monkey. You are not from Tempest. Wukong turned around. You're quite sneaky. Sue's expression didn't change. I could say the same about you. Wukong grinned. I like you. Sue didn't respond. His hand moved toward his weapon. State your purpose. Wukong pointed toward the city. I heard there's good food here. Silence. One of the guards looked at another. Sue stared at Wukong for several seconds. That's your reason for entering Tempest? Yes. And the peaches, also food. Sue's eyes narrowed. Before he could question him further, a voice came from behind the gate. Let him through. The guards immediately stepped aside. Wukong looked toward the city. A small blue figure approached. Rimuru Tempest. Wukong's golden pupils activated instinctively. The moment he looked at Rimuru, his expression changed. His eyes could see the slime's physical body. But beneath it was something far more complicated. A massive spiritual structure. Multiple layers of energy. A core surrounded by enormous amounts of Magicules. And something else. An intelligence operating inside Rimuru's soul. Wukong stared. Rimuru stopped several meters away. The two looked at each other. So you're the guy everyone's been talking about. Wukong crouched slightly. You're a slime. That's usually the first thing people notice. Wukong walked around Rimuru. He looked from one side to the other. You're smaller than expected. Rimuru's body shook slightly. I'm also stronger than I look. Wukong laughed. Good answer. Rimuru noticed the sack on Wukong's shoulder. What's inside? Peaches. You said that already. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. Where did you get them? Wukong smiled. You're the second person to ask me that today. And, I stole them. Rimuru froze. Sue closed his eyes. One of the guards quietly stepped backward. Rimuru sighed. You really just admitted that. Why would he lie? Rimuru looked toward Sue. Where did he steal them from? Sue answered immediately. The sacred peach valley of the local beast tribe. Rimuru's expression became complicated. Ah. Wukong took out a peach. Want one? No. You're missing out. Wukong took a bite. Crunch. Rimuru stared at him. You know, if you want food, you could just ask. Wukong stopped chewing. Really? Yes. And you won't attack me. Not if you don't cause trouble. Wukong smiled. Then you're a reasonable ruler. Rimuru sighed in relief. Finally, someone who understands. Wukong's smile became wider. So he can stay. Rimuru blinked. Who? Wukong pointed at himself. He. Rimuru stared. You're talking about yourself. Yes. You've been here for less than 5 minutes. And you've already learned that he's honest. Rimuru looked at Sue. Sue simply shook his head. This one is troublesome. Wukong laughed. He likes him. Rimuru's expression twitched. Before the conversation could continue, Wukong suddenly looked toward the sky. His golden pupils sharpened. Something was approaching. Fast. A powerful Magicule signature was descending from above. Rimuru noticed it as well. What? Wukong raised his staff. Someone's coming. A massive pressure suddenly descended over the city. Boom. The clouds above Tempest were pushed apart. A figure dropped from the sky. Rimuru looked up. Veldora. The storm dragon landed with a huge grin. Rimuru, I've sensed a strange presence. His eyes immediately fell on Wukong. Wukong looked back. The two stared at each other. Veldora's smile grew wider. You. Wukong raised an eyebrow. You are powerful. So are you. Veldora laughed. Excellent. Rimuru's face immediately became nervous. Don't. Veldora ignored him. Fight me. Wukong's eyes lit up. Why not? Rimuru immediately stretched himself between them. Because you're both going to destroy my city. Veldora complained. I will control my strength. Wukong shrugged. He can try. Rimuru looked at Wukong. That doesn't reassure him. Wukong spun the Ruyi Jingu bang. Don't worry, little slime. Rimuru's eye twitched. Don't call him little slime. Wukong grinned. Then what should he call you? Rimuru. Fine, Rimuru. Wukong turned toward Veldora. Where should they fight? Outside the city. Rimuru shouted. There will be no fighting. Wukong and Veldora looked at each other. Then both smiled. Rimuru immediately knew he was in trouble. Wukong suddenly slammed the end of his staff into the ground. Crack. The earth split beneath his feet. The Ruyi Jingu bang began to grow. It expanded from a simple golden staff into a massive pillar. Rimuru's eyes widened. Wait. The staff continued expanding. It rose through the clouds. The upper end disappeared into the sky. Wukong held it casually with one hand. Veldora stared in amazement. Magnificent. Rimuru's body trembled. That's enough. Wukong stopped. The enormous staff remained suspended above the city. Rimuru stared at it. You almost hit the barrier. Wukong looked upward. Oh. He shrank the staff again. My mistake. Rimuru sighed. Then his expression became serious. He could sense the strange power inside Wukong. It wasn't simply physical strength. There was an unusual combination of immortality, transformation, spiritual energy, and something that seemed completely incompatible with the world's normal skill system. Wukong looked directly at him. You're thinking too much. Rimuru froze. How did you know? Wukong pointed at his eyes. These. His golden pupils shone. They see quite a lot. Rimuru became cautious. Inside his soul, Great Sage began analyzing Wukong. Analysis of target has begun. Wukong's golden eyes immediately shifted toward Rimuru. He smiled. Something is looking at him. Rimuru froze. The presence inside his soul became silent. Wukong laughed. Interesting. Rimuru stared at him. You can detect Great Sage. Wukong tilted his head. Great Sage. A faint golden glow appeared in his eyes. I can see the shape of his consciousness. Rimuru's expression changed. For the first time since Wukong had arrived, he stopped joking. This strange monkey could perceive the existence of Great Sage. And that meant he was far more dangerous than his playful attitude suggested. Wukong, however, simply returned the peach sack to his shoulder. Come on. Rimuru blinked. Where? He wants food. Wukong pointed toward the city. And he wants to see what kind of food Tempest has. Rimuru stared at him. Then he sighed. Fine. Wukong grinned. Good. Veldora immediately followed them. Rimuru. He also wants to know whether your manga collection has improved. Rimuru's face went blank. Why is everyone demanding things from him today? Wukong laughed as he walked through the gates. For the first time since arriving in this new world, the Monkey King entered a civilization that might actually be able to entertain him. Neither he nor Rimuru knew it yet, but their meeting would soon become the beginning of one of the strangest alliances Tempest had ever seen. Wukong walked through the streets of Tempest with a sack of sacred peaches hanging over his shoulder. He looked around with obvious interest. Goblins carried boxes between buildings. Dwarves worked inside workshops. Lizardmen walked alongside humans. Monsters of different races moved through the city without constantly fighting each other. Wukong scratched his cheek. This place is strange. Rimuru walked beside him. That's one way to describe it. Monsters and humans live together. Yes. Nobody is trying to eat anyone. Usually. Wukong looked at him. Usually. Rimuru quickly changed the subject. You said you wanted food. Wukong's eyes immediately brightened. Yes. They entered a large dining hall. Several dishes were already prepared on the table. Wukong stopped. His golden eyes widened. There were grilled meats, vegetables, rice, soup, dumplings, roasted fish, and several unfamiliar dishes. He slowly put down the sack of peaches. This is all for him. Rimuru nodded. You said you were hungry. Wukong sat down immediately. Then he approves of this city. Rimuru smiled. Good. Wukong picked up a piece of grilled meat. Crunch. His eyes widened. Excellent. He immediately grabbed another. Then another. Then another. Rimuru stared. You really were hungry. Wukong continued eating. Within minutes, several plates were empty. Veldora sat across from him. The storm dragon was also eating at an alarming speed. The two stared at each other. Wukong held a piece of meat in one hand. Veldora held another. Neither moved. Then both reached for the same plate. Their hands collided. Clack. Wukong grinned. You eat quickly. Veldora laughed. You are the same. They both grabbed the plate. It broke in half. Crack. Rimuru stared at them. That was one of his favorite plates. Wukong looked at the broken pieces. He can buy another. Rimuru sighed. Veldora laughed loudly. Excellent. This monkey understands. Wukong smiled. The two immediately began eating again. After the meal, Rimuru brought several bottles of Tempest's finest sake. Wukong examined the liquid. What is this? Alcohol. Wukong sniffed it. He took a small sip. His eyes widened. This is good. Veldora immediately pushed another bottle toward him. Try this one. Wukong drank. Then another. Then another. Rimuru watched nervously. You two don't need to finish everything. Wukong looked at him. Why? Because you'll get drunk. Wukong laughed. He cannot get drunk. Veldora grinned. Neither can he. Rimuru stared at them. That's exactly what people who are about to get drunk say. Wukong poured another cup. Then prove it. Rimuru sighed. Several hours later, the dining hall had become much louder. Veldora was talking about his adventures. Wukong was telling stories about the Heavenly Palace. Rimuru was listening while wondering how the situation had become so chaotic. And then, Wukong said, he grabbed the Heavenly Gate and threw it at the guards. Veldora burst into laughter. You actually did that? Yes. Magnificent. Rimuru stared at Wukong. You really caused that much trouble? Wukong shrugged. They were annoying. Veldora slapped the table. Boom. The table cracked. Rimuru immediately stood. That's enough. Both Wukong and Veldora stopped. Rimuru pointed at them. No more breaking furniture. Wukong raised his cup. Understood. Veldora nodded. Understood. Rimuru sat down again. A few seconds passed. Wukong quietly leaned toward Veldora. How strong is Rimuru? Veldora looked at him. Very. How strong? Veldora thought. Strong enough that you should not make him angry. Wukong glanced at Rimuru. Rimuru was eating quietly. Wukong smiled. Interesting. Rimuru looked at him. What? Nothing. Later that night, Wukong stood on the roof of Tempest's central building. The city below was illuminated by lanterns. He looked at the streets. The monsters had already gone home. The city was quiet. For the first time since his arrival, Wukong had a moment without a battle. He sat down. His golden pupils looked toward the moon. Rimuru appeared beside him. Can't sleep. Wukong glanced at him. He doesn't need much sleep. Right. Rimuru sat down beside him. You seem to like Tempest. Wukong looked at the city. Yes. Why? Wukong thought for a moment. It's lively. Rimuru smiled. That's good. Wukong looked at him. And you? What about him? Why did you build this place? Rimuru looked toward the city. He wanted a place where different races could live together. Wukong nodded. Similar to what he saw today. Rimuru smiled. Maybe. Wukong remained silent for a moment. Then he stood. He'll stay. Rimuru looked up. You're staying? Yes. Why? Wukong pointed toward the city. Food. Rimuru laughed. Of course. Wukong smiled. And the people are interesting. He turned toward Rimuru. You're interesting too. Rimuru blinked. Thanks. Wukong extended his hand. Then they are friends. Rimuru looked at the offered hand. He smiled and shook it. Friends. The moment their hands touched, a faint wave of energy spread through the air. Neither noticed it, but deep within the world system, two unusual spiritual signatures had just been connected. One belonged to the Slime Demon Lord. The other belonged to the Monkey King. The next morning, Wukong was already causing trouble. Rimuru found him sitting on top of the city gate. What are you doing? Wukong pointed toward the horizon. Watching. Watching what? The guards. Rimuru looked down. Several guards were training. Wukong suddenly jumped down. Boom. He landed directly in front of them. The guards froze. Wukong smiled. Attack him. The guards stared at one another. What? Attack him. One guard hesitated. Then he charged. Wukong avoided the spear. Another attacked. He dodged. A third attacked from behind. Wukong caught the weapon. He moved so quickly that none of the guards could follow him. Within seconds, all of them were lying on the ground. Wukong helped them stand. Good. Rimuru stared. You trained them? Yes. Without asking. Yes. Rimuru sighed. Wukong smiled. They need to become stronger. Rimuru looked at the guards. They were exhausted, but they were also smiling. You know, you're surprisingly good at this. Wukong shrugged. He has trained armies before. Rimuru nodded. Then he looked toward Wukong. If you're going to stay in Tempest, you'll need a place to live. Wukong's eyes brightened. He can have a mountain. No. A forest. No. A palace. Definitely no. Wukong crossed his arms. Then where? Rimuru pointed toward an empty building. There. Wukong looked at it. Small. It's free. Wukong immediately smiled. Acceptable. That evening, Wukong stood outside his new home. It wasn't a palace. It wasn't a mountain. It wasn't even particularly large. But it was inside Tempest. There were people nearby. Food was easy to obtain. And Veldora had already promised to show him the city's manga collection. Wukong smiled. He had entered this world alone. Now he had found a place worth staying in. He looked toward the distant forest. His golden pupils suddenly sharpened. Something powerful was watching him. Far away, beyond the boundaries of Tempest, an unknown presence had noticed his arrival. Wukong's grin returned. Good. He rested the Ruyi Jingu bang against his shoulder. This world is finally becoming interesting. And while Tempest continued its peaceful night, the Monkey King's arrival began attracting the attention of beings far more dangerous than the monsters of the Jura Great Forest. The next morning in Tempest began peacefully. That peace lasted for approximately 10 minutes. Wukong was sitting on the roof of his new home, eating the last of his sacred peaches while watching the city wake up. Then the ground shook. Boom. Wukong stopped chewing. A massive presence descended from the sky. He looked upward. A gigantic dragon appeared above Tempest, surrounded by swirling clouds and lightning. Veldora. The storm dragon landed in the open field outside the city. Boom. Dust spread across the ground. Wukong swallowed the peach. He's loud. Veldora immediately looked toward the roof. Wukong. Wukong jumped down. What? Veldora grinned. Fight him. Wukong stared at him. Again. Yes. Rimuru hurried out of the nearby building. Veldora, didn't we agree not to destroy the city? Veldora crossed his arms. They will fight outside the city. Wukong nodded. He agrees. Rimuru looked between them. Why does he feel like nobody listens to him? Veldora pointed toward the distant forest. There is plenty of space there. Wukong spun the Ruyi Jingu bang. Let's go. Rimuru sighed. Fine. But no killing each other. Veldora laughed. He would never kill his new friend. Wukong grinned. He might. Rimuru immediately regretted agreeing. Several minutes later, Wukong and Veldora stood in a vast clearing deep within the forest. Rimuru watched from a safe distance. Benimaru, Sue, Shuna, and several other monsters had also gathered. Benimaru looked at Wukong. He's actually going to fight Veldora. Rimuru nodded. Apparently. Sue narrowed his eyes. That monkey's presence is strange. Rimuru smiled. You noticed too. Sue nodded. His physical strength doesn't seem to follow any normal rule. Before anyone could continue, Veldora transformed. The massive dragon disappeared. A tall man with golden hair appeared in his place. He stretched his arms. Much better. Wukong looked at him. So you can transform too. Veldora smiled proudly. Of course. Wukong's golden pupils shone. He immediately examined Veldora's body. The result surprised him. True dragon. Veldora's grin widened. Correct. Wukong laughed. Interesting. He placed the Ruyi Jingu bang across his shoulders. Then he won't hold back. Rimuru shouted from a distance. Remember what he said. Wukong and Veldora ignored him. They charged simultaneously. Boom. Their fists collided. The shockwave tore through the clearing. Trees bent violently. Several rocks were thrown into the air. Benimaru covered his face. That was just the first exchange. Veldora laughed. Excellent. Wukong grinned. You're strong. Veldora attacked again. His fist moved with overwhelming speed. Wukong tilted his head. The fist passed beside his face. Wukong swung his staff. Veldora blocked it with his forearm. Clash. The impact pushed him backward. Veldora stopped himself. That weapon. Wukong spun the staff. You like it? Very much. Veldora charged again. Wukong enlarged the Ruyi Jingu bang. The golden staff swept across the clearing. Veldora jumped over it. Wukong immediately changed its direction. The staff followed him. Veldora blocked it with both arms. Boom. He was launched backward. He crashed into a hill. Boom. Dust covered the area. Rimuru sighed. There goes another hill. A moment later, Veldora emerged from the rubble. His clothes were torn. His expression was delighted. Again. Wukong laughed. You're enjoying this. Of course. Veldora released his aura. Lightning gathered around his body. The sky darkened. Thunder roared. Roar. A massive bolt of lightning descended. Wukong stood still. His golden pupils activated. The lightning split into several trajectories. He jumped between them. Crack. One bolt struck the ground beneath him. Another passed behind his head. A third came from above. Wukong raised his staff. The lightning struck the golden weapon. Crack. Electricity spread across his body. He stood completely unharmed. Veldora stared. What? Wukong smiled. Your lightning is impressive. He vanished. Veldora's eyes widened. Wukong appeared directly in front of him. His fist struck Veldora's stomach. Boom. Veldora flew backward. He landed several hundred meters away. The ground cracked beneath him. Rimuru's eyes widened. Wukong actually sent Veldora flying. Benimaru looked stunned. That's absurd. Sue remained silent. Veldora stood up. Then he started laughing. Ha. His grin became enormous. Ha ha ha. He rushed forward again. Wukong met him halfway. The two collided. Boom. Boom. Clash. Boom. Their battle continued across the forest. Veldora attacked with overwhelming physical strength and draconic energy. Wukong responded with speed, transformations, and his staff. At one moment, Wukong transformed into a tiny bird and flew around Veldora's head. At the next, he became a massive ape and slammed the Ruyi Jingu bang into the ground. Veldora laughed harder every time. That transformation ability is incredible. Wukong turned back into his normal form. 72 transformations. Teach him. No. Why? Because you're annoying. Veldora froze. Then he laughed again. Excellent. The battle continued until the afternoon. Eventually, both stopped. Wukong sat on a large rock. Veldora lay on the grass. Neither had suffered serious damage. Rimuru approached them. Finished. Veldora nodded. Yes. Wukong took a peach from his pocket. He's hungry. Veldora immediately sat up. Peach. Wukong threw one toward him. Veldora caught it. He took a bite. Crunch. His eyes widened. Delicious. Wukong laughed. There are no more. Veldora looked at him. What? That was the last one. Veldora stared at the empty bag. Then he looked toward the distant forest. We should get more. Rimuru immediately interrupted. Absolutely not. Wukong looked disappointed. Why? Because he doesn't want another tribe showing up at Tempest demanding their sacred peaches back. Veldora frowned. That happened. Rimuru pointed at Wukong. Ask him. Veldora slowly turned toward Wukong. Wukong smiled innocently. It was complicated. Rimuru sighed. Of course it was. That evening, the three returned to Tempest. Wukong and Veldora walked side by side. They were already arguing about who had won. He knocked you into a hill. Veldora said. Wukong shook his head. You stood up. Because he is a true dragon. Then he wins. No, he didn't. Rimuru walked behind them. Neither of you won. Both turned toward him. What? It was a draw. Veldora crossed his arms. He doesn't accept that. Wukong smiled. Neither does he. Rimuru sighed. Great. Now there are two of you. Wukong laughed. Veldora laughed with him. The two had only fought once, yet something had already changed. They understood each other's strength. Neither needed an explanation. Neither needed a formal agreement. They simply enjoyed fighting. And for Wukong, that was enough. As the three entered Tempest, Wukong glanced toward the sky. His golden pupils suddenly detected something distant. A powerful aura, far stronger than the monsters he had encountered. It wasn't Veldora. It wasn't Rimuru. And it wasn't coming from the forest. Wukong's smile faded slightly. Someone had noticed him. Rimuru noticed his expression. What is it? Wukong looked toward the horizon. Someone strong is watching. Veldora's eyes immediately lit up. Another strong opponent. Wukong grinned. Perhaps. Rimuru's expression became nervous. Don't start another fight. Wukong looked at him. He didn't say anything. Your face did. Wukong laughed. The golden cloud appeared beneath his feet for a moment before disappearing again. He wasn't leaving. Not yet. But somewhere far beyond Tempest, another powerful existence had already begun investigating the arrival of the strange immortal monkey. And soon, the Monkey King would attract the attention of someone who had ruled the demon world for thousands of years. The next morning, Tempest was unusually quiet. Wukong sat on top of the city wall with his legs crossed, watching the people below. He had spent the previous day fighting Veldora. His body had recovered completely. Not a single wound remained. Wukong rested his chin on his hand. This world has many strange abilities. His golden pupils shifted toward the city. He could see the Magicules flowing through every monster. Some were weak. Some were strong. Some possessed unique abilities. But none of them were particularly difficult to understand. Then his eyes stopped. Rimuru was walking through the city. Wukong's expression became interested. The slime was surrounded by a strange spiritual structure. Something was constantly processing information inside him. Wukong jumped from the wall. He landed beside Rimuru without making a sound. Rimuru looked at him. Good morning. Good morning. Wukong stared directly into Rimuru's eyes. Rimuru became slightly uncomfortable. What? He wants to see something. See what? Your skill. Rimuru froze. My skill. Wukong nodded. Yes. Rimuru laughed nervously. That's not something he can just show you. Wukong tilted his head. Why not? Because skills aren't something you casually display. Wukong smiled. Then he'll look himself. Rimuru's expression changed. Wait. Wukong's golden pupils ignited. A faint golden light spread across his eyes. The world around him changed. Rimuru's body disappeared. What remained was a complex network of energy. Magicules, soul, spiritual circuits, skill structures, and deep within them, a vast intelligence. Wukong's eyes narrowed. There you are. Rimuru immediately felt something strange. What are you looking at? Wukong pointed toward his chest. The one inside you. Silence. Rimuru stopped moving. Great Sage remained silent for a moment. Then a message appeared inside Rimuru's mind. Target's perception has penetrated the outer layer of information. Rimuru's eyes widened. Great Sage. Confirmed. Target can perceive my existence. Wukong smiled. So your name is Great Sage. Rimuru stared at him. How did you hear that? I didn't. Wukong tapped his own eye. He told him. Rimuru became speechless. For the first time, Great Sage seemed to encounter something it could not immediately classify. Unknown ocular ability. Analysis incomplete. Target's perception does not rely entirely on conventional Magicule detection. Wukong grinned. You can't understand these eyes. Negative. Interesting. Rimuru looked between them. Don't start competing. Wukong laughed. He likes this one. Wukong suddenly raised his hand. A small golden spark appeared above his palm. He looked at it. This world's skills are interesting. Rimuru nodded. They're one of the most important parts of the power system here. He noticed. Wukong closed his fingers. The spark disappeared. They're similar to techniques. Similar. Yes. Wukong looked at Rimuru. But they depend on the laws of this world. Rimuru nodded. Mostly. Wukong's smile became mischievous. Then he wants to test something. Rimuru immediately became suspicious. What? Wukong pointed toward him. He wants to copy one. Rimuru's eyes widened. You can't just copy a skill. Wukong shrugged. He can try. His golden pupils shone again. This time, his perception focused entirely on Rimuru's skill structure. The information began unfolding. Predation, storage, analysis, separation, synthesis. Wukong observed everything. Seconds passed. Then his expression changed. He had found something interesting. Rimuru looked nervous. What did you see? Wukong smiled. Your ability isn't simply predation. Rimuru nodded. Right. It analyzes what it consumes. Yes. It separates useful information. Yes. It stores abilities. Yes. Wukong laughed. Then it's not so different from him. Rimuru blinked. What? Wukong touched his chest. His heavenly sage. Rimuru looked surprised. You can do something similar. Not exactly. Wukong's golden pupils remained fixed on Rimuru. His skill analyzes. He raised one finger. His skill transforms. Another finger. His skill creates. Another. And his skill adapts. He smiled. Your skill consumes. Rimuru thought about it. So they're different. Yes. Wukong's smile widened. But they can understand each other. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. What are you two doing? Benimaru approached. Wukong turned. Studying. Benimaru looked confused. Studying. Yes. Wukong pointed at Rimuru. He is interesting. Rimuru sighed. Don't make it sound strange. Benimaru looked at Wukong. You've been staring at Lord Rimuru for 10 minutes. Wukong nodded. Correct. Benimaru became speechless. Then Wukong looked at him. His golden pupils activated. Benimaru immediately felt something strange. What are you doing? Looking. Wukong analyzed his Magicules. Flame. Physical strength. Combat instincts. Swordsmanship. He could see the entire structure. Wukong smiled. Fire. Benimaru's expression became serious. You can see it. Yes. Wukong stepped closer. Your flames are connected to your Magicules. Benimaru nodded. That's normal. Not for him. Wukong's eyes glowed brighter. The structure of Benimaru's flames became completely visible. He could see how they were generated. How they moved. How they reacted to magical energy. Then Wukong raised one finger. A tiny flame appeared. It was red. Benimaru stared. You copied his flames. Wukong looked at the flame. Not exactly. The flame changed color. Red, blue, white, black, then gold. Benimaru's eyes widened. He can reproduce elemental properties. Rimuru looked surprised. That's not even one of the transformations. Wukong smiled. His eyes can see how something works. The flame disappeared, and his body can imitate it. Rimuru suddenly became serious. That's dangerous. Wukong looked at him. Yes. If you can analyze skills just by looking at them, you could potentially reproduce abilities that normally take years to master. Wukong nodded. Correct. And if you keep improving. Wukong interrupted. He'll become stronger. Rimuru sighed. That's exactly what he was worried about. Wukong laughed. Why? Because you're already ridiculously strong. Wukong thought about it. Perhaps. Rimuru stared. Don't sound so pleased. Wukong grinned. He is pleased. A sudden presence entered the city. Wukong's golden pupils immediately turned toward the northern gate. Rimuru noticed. What? Wukong stood. Someone is coming. Benimaru reached for his sword. Enemy. Wukong shook his head. Not yet. The pressure grew stronger. The air became colder. The surrounding Magicules shifted. Wukong's golden pupils pierced through the distance. A red-haired man was approaching. He walked casually. No army. No guards. No visible weapons. Yet his presence was enough to make several monsters instinctively retreat. Rimuru's expression became serious. Him. Wukong looked at Rimuru. You know him? Rimuru nodded. Yes. The red-haired man entered the city. His crimson eyes immediately focused on Wukong. He stopped. Wukong smiled. The man smiled back. So you're the strange monkey I've been hearing about. Wukong rested the Ruyi Jingu bang against his shoulder. And you're the one who has been watching him. The man's smile widened. Interesting. His eyes met Wukong's golden pupils. Neither moved. Rimuru stood between them. Let's not start anything. The red-haired man laughed. Don't worry. He looked at Wukong again. He only came to see what kind of existence has appeared in this world. Wukong's grin became wider. Then looked carefully. His golden pupils shone. Because he is looking back. For the first time, the man's expression became genuinely interested. The meeting between the Monkey King and the Crimson Demon Lord had begun. And unlike the previous battles Wukong had experienced, this time neither side knew exactly what the other was capable of. The red-haired man stood silently in front of Wukong. Rimuru watched both of them carefully. He already knew the man. Guy Crimson, one of the most dangerous beings in the world. Wukong, however, seemed completely relaxed. He looked at Guy from head to toe. Then he smiled. So you're Guy Crimson. Guy raised an eyebrow. You know his name. Rimuru told him. Rimuru blinked. He did. Wukong shrugged. He heard it somewhere. Guy laughed. You're an interesting one. Wukong pointed at him. You're strong. So are you. Want to fight? Rimuru immediately stepped between them. No. Wukong frowned. Why? Because he knows exactly what happens when powerful people fight inside Tempest. Guy laughed. He agrees with the slime. Wukong looked disappointed. Then his golden pupils suddenly shifted toward Guy. For a brief moment, the two powerful beings examined each other. Wukong could see the enormous energy hidden beneath Guy's casual appearance. Primordial Demon. Demon Lord. Ancient existence. His golden pupils continued deeper. Guy noticed. Those eyes are troublesome. Wukong grinned. They can see quite a lot. Including his secrets. Some of them. Guy's smile disappeared for a moment. Wukong laughed. Don't worry. He won't tell anyone. Guy stared at him. Why? Because secrets are boring. Guy laughed again. You're definitely strange. Wukong turned away. He's hungry. Rimuru sighed. You just ate. He's hungry again. Guy watched the monkey walk toward the dining hall. For several seconds, he remained silent. Then he looked at Rimuru. Where did you find him? Rimuru shrugged. He appeared in the Jura Great Forest. Guy's expression became serious. That much power appearing without warning is dangerous. He knows. And you're letting him stay. Rimuru smiled. He's troublesome, but he isn't hostile. Guy glanced toward the dining hall. Yet, several days passed. Wukong became increasingly familiar with Tempest. He ate at the dining hall. He trained with Benimaru. He spent hours reading manga with Veldora. And occasionally, he disappeared without telling anyone. That was exactly what happened one morning. Rimuru was busy with paperwork when Sue suddenly appeared. Lord Rimuru. Rimuru looked up. What? Wukong has disappeared. Rimuru froze. Again? Yes. Where did he go? Sue hesitated. North. Rimuru's expression changed. The ice continent. Sue nodded. Rimuru immediately put down his papers. Why? He said he wanted to see something. Rimuru sighed. That's never a good sign. Far to the north, an enormous white landscape stretched beneath the sky. Snow-covered mountains. Frozen lakes reflected the sunlight. The temperature was low enough to kill ordinary creatures within minutes. Wukong stood on his golden cloud. He looked around. Cold. He rubbed his arms. Then he noticed something. A massive crystal formation rose from the snow. It was beautiful. Its surface contained a faint crimson glow. Wukong's golden pupils activated. Extremely high-density Magicule crystal detected. Energy composition. Ice-based demonic power. Wukong's eyes brightened. Interesting. He landed beside it. He touched the crystal. A cold wave spread through his body. Wukong smiled. Very cold. Then he broke off a small piece. Crack. He tasted it. He immediately frowned. Not food. He threw it away. Then he thought for a moment. A mischievous smile appeared on his face. If he can't eat it. He looked at the enormous crystal. He can make something else. Several hours later, the boneyard-like silence of the ice continent was interrupted by laughter. Wukong sat beneath a large tree. In front of him was a massive bowl. Inside it were crushed ice crystals. He added fruit, then syrup, then another ingredient he had found nearby. He took a spoonful. His eyes widened. Excellent. He continued eating. Then he heard a voice. What are you doing? Wukong looked up. A red-haired man stood several meters away. Guy Crimson. His expression was extremely cold. Not because of the weather. Because behind Wukong was a large section of his sacred ice crystal formation. A considerable portion had been removed. Guy stared at the bowl. Then at Wukong. Then at the destroyed crystal. What did you do? Wukong smiled. Made shaved ice. Guy's eyebrow twitched. With his crystal. Wukong nodded. Yes. Why? Because it makes good ice. Guy's expression became darker. That crystal took thousands of years to form. Wukong continued eating. Then it must be very good. Guy's eye twitched. You broke one of his sacred crystal formations just to make dessert. Wukong nodded. Yes. Silence. A cold wind passed between them. Then Guy smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Put the bowl down. Wukong looked at him. Why? Because he is going to hit you. Wukong laughed. Finally. He stood. The bowl disappeared into his storage. The Ruyi Jingu bang appeared in his hand. Guy's crimson aura exploded. Boom. Snow erupted from the ground. Wukong's golden aura answered. The surrounding ice cracked. Crack. Guy vanished. Wukong raised his staff. Clash. The impact sent a shockwave across the ice field. Wukong slid backward. Guy remained standing. Wukong's grin widened. Strong. Guy attacked again. Wukong blocked. Clash. The staff bent slightly under the pressure. Wukong transformed. His body became smaller. He slipped beneath Guy's attack. Then he transformed again. A giant ape appeared. He swung the staff downward. Boom. Guy dodged. The attack shattered the ice beneath him. Wukong immediately changed into a tiny bird and flew upward. Guy looked up. The bird transformed back into Wukong. He swung the staff. Guy blocked it. You really like changing forms. Wukong laughed. It keeps things interesting. Guy counterattacked. Wukong disappeared. He reappeared behind Guy. Then beside him. Then above him. Several Wukongs appeared simultaneously. Guy's eyes narrowed. Clones. Yes. The clones attacked from every direction. Clash. Clash. Boom. Guy destroyed one. Then another. Another transformed into a bird. Another became a giant beast. Guy suddenly realized what Wukong was doing. You're using transformations to confuse his perception. Wukong appeared behind him. Correct. Guy turned. Wukong tapped his shoulder. Boo. Guy's expression became blank. Then Wukong laughed. Guy sighed. You are incredibly annoying. He has heard that before. Guy raised his hand. A massive demonic aura gathered. Wukong immediately raised his staff. Before either could attack again. Stop. Rimuru's voice echoed across the ice field. Wukong looked over. Rimuru stood on a nearby hill, looking completely exhausted. Guy glanced at him. He destroyed his ice crystals. Rimuru looked at Wukong. Wukong smiled innocently. He made dessert. Rimuru closed his eyes. Of course you did. Guy pointed toward the destroyed formation. Make him pay for it. Rimuru sighed. He'll replace it. Wukong nodded. He can do that. Guy looked at him. You can. Wukong grinned. Yes. He pulled several strands of hair from his body. He threw them onto the ground. Poof. Hundreds of tiny Wukongs appeared. Guy stared. Rimuru stared. The tiny Wukongs immediately began collecting fragments of ice crystals. Wukong pointed toward the formation. Rebuild it. The clones shouted together. Yes. They scattered across the ice field. Guy remained silent. Rimuru looked at Wukong. You could have done that from the beginning. Wukong shrugged. Then it wouldn't have been fun. Guy sighed. I understand now. Rimuru looked at him. What? Guy pointed toward Wukong. He's a disaster. Wukong laughed. Correct. Rimuru could only sigh, but despite the destruction, Guy's expression had changed. He was still annoyed, yet beneath that annoyance was curiosity. Wukong's power was genuine, his immortality was strange, his transformations were unpredictable, and his eyes had already seen through abilities that most beings couldn't even comprehend. Guy looked at the Monkey King. Next time you want something from his territory, ask. Wukong nodded. Okay. Guy narrowed his eyes. He means it. Wukong smiled. He understands. A pause followed. Then Wukong pointed toward the remaining ice. Can he have some? Guy stared at him. For what? Shaved ice. Guy closed his eyes. Take a small piece. Wukong immediately grinned. Excellent. Rimuru shook his head. The great sage equal to heaven had somehow turned the ice continent into his personal dessert shop. And Guy Crimson had just realized that keeping this monkey away from trouble might be far more difficult than fighting him. The ice continent had finally returned to silence. The damaged crystal formation had been repaired by Wukong's clones, and the remaining fragments had been gathered into a large bowl. Wukong sat on a frozen rock, happily eating shaved ice. Guy stood several meters away with his arms crossed. Rimuru watched them both. For several minutes, nobody said anything. Then Guy spoke. You really aren't afraid of anything, are you? Wukong took another bite. Why should he be? Because you are standing in the territory of one of the oldest demons in existence. Wukong looked around. He noticed. Guy's eye twitched. Rimuru sighed. Don't provoke him. Wukong smiled. He's not provoking anyone. Guy suddenly laughed. No, he isn't. The red primordial demon stepped forward. He's simply incapable of taking anything seriously. Wukong stood. That's not true. Guy raised an eyebrow. Oh. Wukong pointed at his bowl. He takes food seriously. Rimuru covered his face. Guy laughed. Fine. Then he will take something else seriously. His aura changed. The temperature around him dropped. The snow beneath his feet cracked. Wukong's smile disappeared. His golden pupils focused on Guy. The atmosphere became heavy. You want another fight? Guy nodded. Yes. Wukong placed the bowl on the ground. Good. The Ruyi Jingu bang appeared in his hand. Rimuru immediately stepped backward. This time, no destroying the continent. Guy smiled. He'll try. Wukong grinned. He won't promise. Rimuru sighed. Of course. The first attack came from Guy. He vanished. Wukong's golden pupils tracked his movement. Clash. The Ruyi Jingu bang blocked Guy's fist. The impact sent a shockwave across the ice. Wukong slid several meters. Guy followed immediately. Another punch. Then a kick. Then a sweeping strike. Wukong avoided each attack by the smallest possible margin. His body twisted unnaturally. His golden pupils analyzed every movement. Movement pattern detected. Acceleration. Extreme. Attack trajectory calculated. Wukong smiled. Faster than before. Guy's fist came toward his face. Wukong leaned backward. The punch passed directly above his nose. He countered with the staff. Guy raised his arm. Clash. Guy was pushed backward. His boots carved two long lines across the ice. He looked at his arm. There was no wound, but his expression became more serious. Interesting. Wukong spun the staff. You're tougher than most. Guy laughed. And you're much more troublesome than expected. He released his demonic aura. The sky darkened. A massive amount of energy gathered around him. Rimuru's expression changed. Guy didn't answer. Wukong's golden pupils narrowed. He could see the structure of the attack forming. He recognized the nature of the energy. It wasn't ordinary magic, it was concentrated destructive power. Wukong raised his staff. Finally, Guy released the attack. Boom! The entire ice field erupted. A wave of destructive energy swept across the continent. Wukong disappeared inside the explosion. Rimuru raised a barrier. The shockwave struck it. Boom! The barrier shook violently. Wukong. The explosion slowly faded. Snow fell from the sky. Guy stood in the center of the crater. He looked around. Did he get him? A voice came from above. Not even close. Guy looked upward. Wukong floated in the air on the Jindou Yun. His clothes were slightly torn. There were a few scratches on his body. But the wounds were already disappearing. Guy's crimson eyes narrowed. Immortality. Wukong landed. One of them. One. Wukong nodded. There are several. Guy stared at him. How many? Wukong smiled. He stopped counting. Guy laughed. Then let's test them. Guy disappeared again. This time, Wukong didn't move. Guy appeared behind him. His sword was already drawn. The blade came down. Clash. Wukong blocked it with the Ruyi Jingu bang. The force pushed him to one knee. Guy pressed harder. Wukong's golden pupils sharpened. He suddenly transformed. His body became extremely small. The sword passed over him. He transformed back while jumping. His staff expanded. It struck Guy from below. Boom. Guy was launched upward. Wukong followed. The staff expanded again. It became a massive golden pillar. Guy crossed his arms. Clash. He was driven downward. Boom. The ice beneath him exploded. Wukong landed. Guy emerged from the crater. He wasn't smiling anymore. That staff is absurd. Wukong rested it on his shoulder. It's his favorite. Guy suddenly appeared beside him. Wukong barely turned in time. A fist struck his face. Boom. Wukong flew across the ice. He crashed through several frozen trees. Crack. He stopped himself with one hand. His face was slightly damaged. The flesh began regenerating immediately. Wukong touched his cheek. Then he smiled. That hurt. Guy stood in the distance. Good. Wukong's eyes became sharper. Again. The two sovereigns collided once more. This time, neither held back. Guy's sword moved with deadly precision. Wukong's staff changed size constantly. Small enough to strike like a needle. Large enough to crush mountains. The ice continent shook with every collision. Clash. Boom. Crack. Wukong transformed into a giant ape. Guy avoided the massive fist. Wukong immediately transformed into a serpent. He wrapped around Guy's body. Guy broke free. Wukong became a bird. Then a wolf. Then a massive tiger. Then himself again. Each transformation came without hesitation. Guy's sword cut through several clones. Poof. Another clone appeared. Poof. Another. Soon, dozens of Wukongs surrounded Guy. They attacked simultaneously. Guy's eyes narrowed. He unleashed his aura. The clones were destroyed one after another. Poof. 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 But the real Wukong had already disappeared. Guy sensed him too late. The Ruyi Jingu bang struck his side. Boom. Guy flew across the battlefield. He stopped himself in midair. Wukong stood below. Got you. Guy laughed. Yes. Then Guy raised his hand. But so did he. A dark blade of energy appeared behind Wukong. Wukong's golden pupils immediately detected it. He turned. Clash. His staff blocked the blade. The force pushed him backward. Guy appeared directly in front of him. Their fists collided. Boom. Both were thrown backward. They landed several dozen meters apart. For the first time, they stopped. Neither attacked. The battlefield was covered in craters. The surrounding mountains had been damaged. Large sections of the ice field had disappeared. Rimuru looked at them. Are you done? Guy looked at Wukong. Wukong looked at Guy. Then both laughed. He's strong. Wukong nodded. You too. Guy sheathed his sword. He understands why you interested him. Wukong lowered his staff. And he understands why you're interested. Guy looked toward Rimuru. He isn't an ordinary monster. Rimuru nodded. I know. Guy turned back to Wukong. You're something outside the normal hierarchy. Wukong shrugged. He doesn't care about hierarchy. Guy smiled. He noticed. Wukong walked toward him. The two stopped several meters apart. Guy extended his hand. Wukong looked at it. Then he shook it. Friends. Guy laughed. Perhaps. Wukong smiled. Good enough. Rimuru finally relaxed. Thank goodness. Then Wukong looked at the damaged landscape. Who's paying for this? Rimuru's expression immediately became blank. Guy pointed at Wukong. He did most of it. Wukong pointed at Guy. He started it. Guy laughed. Rimuru sighed. Both of you are paying. They stared at Rimuru. What? Rimuru crossed his arms. You heard him. Wukong laughed. Guy shook his head. This slime really is troublesome. Rimuru smiled. Coming from you, that's a compliment. That evening, Wukong returned to Tempest with Rimuru. Guy remained behind to inspect the damaged ice continent. As Wukong walked through the city, several monsters stared at him. News of his battle with Guy had already spread. Benimaru approached. Lord Rimuru. Rimuru looked at him. What? Did Wukong really fight Guy Crimson? Rimuru nodded. Benimaru looked at Wukong. And neither of them was seriously injured. Correct. Benimaru became silent. Wukong smiled. He wants to fight you again. Benimaru immediately shook his head. No. Wukong laughed. Wise. Rimuru shook his head. Don't encourage him. Wukong continued walking. Above Tempest, the clouds slowly parted. For the first time since arriving in the world, Wukong had encountered someone who could actually push him into a serious battle. And Guy Crimson had reached the same conclusion. The Monkey King was not simply a powerful outsider. He was a wildcard whose existence could not be measured by the world's ordinary standards. That made him dangerous. It also made him impossible to ignore. The invitation arrived 3 days after Wukong's battle with Guy Crimson. Rimuru was sitting in his office when a golden envelope suddenly appeared on his desk. He stared at it. What is this? Wukong, who was lying on the sofa while eating fruit, glanced over. An invitation. Rimuru opened it. His expression changed. Walpurgis. Wukong sat up. What's that? A meeting between demon lords. Wukong's eyes brightened. Food. Rimuru sighed. Probably. He's going. He knew you'd say that. The day of Walpurgis arrived. Rimuru brought Wukong with him. The two entered the meeting chamber together. Wukong immediately looked around. The room was enormous. Several powerful demon lords were already seated. Milim Nava noticed Wukong first. Her eyes widened. Who's the monkey? Wukong pointed at himself. Him. Milim jumped from her seat. You're a monkey. Correct. You're strong. Correct. Milim's eyes sparkled. Fight him. Rimuru immediately grabbed her. No fighting. Why? Because he doesn't want another disaster. Wukong looked at Milim. She looked back. The two smiled. Rimuru immediately became nervous. Don't. Milim crossed her arms. Fine. Wukong nodded. Later. Agreed. Rimuru sighed. He knew that was coming. Wukong walked toward the central table. He looked at the various demon lords. Some were curious. Some were suspicious. Others were completely uninterested. Wukong didn't care. He grabbed a chair. Then he looked at the table. There was an assortment of food. His eyes lit up. Good. He sat down and began eating. Several demon lords stared. One of them looked at Rimuru. He's really doing that? Rimuru smiled awkwardly. Yes. Wukong grabbed another piece. Crunch. This is good. Milim immediately joined him. Give him some. Wukong pushed a plate toward her. Take it. The two began eating together. Rimuru looked at the others. Please ignore them. Guy Crimson entered the chamber. The moment he arrived, several demon lords became quiet. His crimson eyes immediately found Wukong. Wukong waved. Hello. Guy nodded. You made it. Yes. Guy sat down. Milim looked between them. You two fought, right? Wukong nodded. Guy smiled. Yes. Who won? Both answered simultaneously. Draw. Milim's eyes became even brighter. Then he wants to fight both of you. Rimuru immediately shook his head. No. Milim pouted. Boring. Wukong laughed. She's fun. Rimuru pointed at him. Don't encourage her. The meeting officially began. The demon lords discussed various matters concerning the balance of the world. Wukong listened quietly. For several minutes, he behaved himself. Then he noticed a bowl of fruit placed in front of another demon lord. His golden pupils focused on it. Those look good. The demon lord stared at him. They're his. Wukong nodded. He understands. He reached over. The demon lord immediately moved the bowl away. Wukong looked at him. The demon lord stared back. Silence. Then Wukong smiled. Fine. He picked up a different fruit from his own plate. Rimuru relaxed. The meeting continued, until one of the demon lords finally asked the question everyone had been waiting to ask. Who exactly is he? All eyes turned toward Wukong. Rimuru answered. His name is Sun Wukong. A few expressions changed. Rimuru continued. He appeared in the Jura Great Forest recently. He's an immortal monkey with extraordinary physical strength, transformation abilities, and a strange skill. Guy added. His existence doesn't fit the normal hierarchy. Wukong looked at him. That's a compliment. Guy smiled. Perhaps. Another demon lord looked at Wukong. What is your objective? Wukong thought about it. Food. Silence. Rimuru closed his eyes. And, fun. And, Wukong looked around the room. He hasn't decided yet. The demon lord stared. You entered this world without an objective. Yes. You don't seek territory. No. Power. He already has enough. Political authority. Wukong laughed. Boring. The demon lord became silent. Guy smiled. That's exactly why he's dangerous. Wukong pointed at Guy. He understands. Milim suddenly stood. She walked toward Wukong. Show them. Wukong looked at her. Show them what? Your power. Rimuru immediately frowned. Milim. It's fine. Wukong stood. The chamber became quiet. He removed one strand of hair. He held it between two fingers. This is enough. He blew on it. The strand flew through the air. Poof. A second Wukong appeared. Then a third. Then a fourth. Soon, dozens of Wukongs stood around the chamber. The demon lords became silent. Each clone held a miniature Ruyi Jingu bang. Milim's eyes sparkled. Awesome. Wukong snapped his fingers. All the clones disappeared. The room returned to normal. One demon lord leaned forward. Those clones possess independent movement. Yes. And they can transform. Yes. How many can you create? Wukong smiled. Enough. Guy laughed. That's not an answer. It is. Rimuru looked at Wukong. You really don't like giving numbers. Numbers limit things. Guy's expression became serious. Not necessarily. Wukong looked at him. For him, they do. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. A powerful pressure descended over the chamber. Several demon lords became alert. Wukong's golden pupils immediately activated. He could see the flow of energy throughout the room. The pressure came from multiple directions. Some were suppressing their aura. Others were deliberately releasing it. Wukong smiled. Interesting. Rimuru looked at him. What? Everyone here is strong. Guy nodded. That's why this meeting exists. Wukong looked around. Then he climbed onto the central table. Rimuru's expression froze. Wukong. Wukong sat cross-legged. What? Get down. Why? That's the table. Wukong looked around. Yes. You're supposed to sit in your chair. Wukong pointed toward the chair. Too far from the food. Milim laughed. He likes him. Rimuru sighed. Several demon lords stared at the monkey sitting on the table. Guy simply laughed. Leave him. Wukong smiled. Good. The meeting continued. But from that moment onward, Wukong stopped being treated like an ordinary guest. Every demon lord understood one thing. He had no interest in their political structure. He didn't seek their approval. He didn't fear their power. He didn't even care about their titles. He was simply doing whatever he wanted. And somehow, that made him even harder to predict. Eventually, Guy stood. He has a proposal. The room became quiet. Guy looked toward Wukong. The demon lords should recognize him as an independent existence. Rimuru looked surprised. You're serious? Yes. Guy continued. He doesn't need to become a demon lord. He doesn't need a territory. He doesn't need a title. Wukong nodded. Good. Guy smiled. But everyone should understand that attacking him would be considered a serious act. The other demon lords remained silent. Then one after another, they accepted. Wukong had no interest in the title of Demon Lord. He didn't want to rule the world. He didn't want an army. He simply wanted freedom, and that made him something different. A wildcard, an existence that stood outside the established order. Rimuru looked at him. You realize you've just become one of the most famous beings in the world. Wukong shrugged. He doesn't care. Milim leaned toward him. What does he care about? Wukong thought for a moment. Food. Milim nodded seriously. Good answer. Rimuru sighed. After the meeting ended, Wukong walked toward the exit. Guy followed. Wukong. He stopped. What? Guy smiled. He wants a rematch someday. Wukong turned around. His golden pupils shone. He'll be waiting. Milim suddenly appeared between them. And he wants to fight too. Wukong grinned. You can go first. Rimuru immediately shouted from behind them. No one is fighting. Wukong, Guy, and Milim looked at him. Then all three laughed. Rimuru sighed. The Walpurgis meeting had ended. But the demon lords had gained something they hadn't expected. A new wildcard had entered their world. And unlike every other ruler they knew, Sun Wukong had absolutely no intention of behaving like one. The Eastern Empire had finally noticed Tempest. For weeks, reports had reached the Imperial Command. A strange monster had appeared in the Jura Great Forest. A slime demon lord ruled the region. A storm dragon had returned. And now there was another existence whose strength could not be measured properly. A monkey. The Imperial commanders did not take the final report seriously. That was their first mistake. The second mistake was assuming that every monster could be defeated with enough soldiers. The third was attacking while Sun Wukong was sleeping. Wukong had chosen a quiet forest several kilometers away from Tempest. He was lying beneath a massive tree with his arms behind his head. His eyes were closed. His Ruyi Jingu bang rested against the trunk. The forest was peaceful. Birds moved through the branches. The wind gently shook the leaves. Wukong had decided that sleeping was more enjoyable than dealing with paperwork. Then he heard it. Boom. His eyes opened. A distant explosion shook the forest. Wukong sat up. Another explosion followed. Boom. Smoke rose above the trees. His golden pupils immediately focused on the horizon. Hundreds of magical signatures were approaching. Wukong frowned. Annoying. He stood. Another explosion tore through the forest. A line of trees collapsed. Soldiers emerged from the smoke. They wore heavy armor and carried magical weapons. Behind them were large armored vehicles. Their cannons were already aimed at the forest. The Imperial commander raised his hand. Burn the area. The soldiers activated their weapons. Multiple magic circles appeared. Fire gathered in the air. Wukong stared at them from between the trees. They woke him up. The first barrage was fired. Boom. Flames consumed the forest. Trees exploded. The ground burned. The soldiers advanced through the smoke. Search the area. Eliminate every monster. Continue the bombardment. Another volley was fired. Boom. A large section of the forest disappeared. Then the flames suddenly stopped. The soldiers froze. A figure stood in the middle of the burning field. Sun Wukong. His clothes were covered in ash. His expression was completely blank. His golden pupils glowed faintly. The Imperial commander stared. What? Wukong slowly looked around. The forest where he had been sleeping was burning. His eyes narrowed. You destroyed his bed. The commander laughed. It's only a monster. Wukong looked at him. Monster. The commander pointed his weapon. Kill him. Hundreds of soldiers opened fire. Boom. The entire area vanished beneath a storm of magic. When the smoke cleared, Wukong was still standing. Not a scratch. He looked at his clothes. A small tear was visible on one sleeve. Wukong stared at it. Then he looked back at the soldiers. His expression had changed. Now he's angry. Wukong reached into his hair. He pulled out a single strand. He placed it between his fingers. Come out. He blew. Poof. One Wukong appeared, then another, then 10, then 100. The clones continued appearing. Poof, poof, poof. Soon, the forest was filled with thousands of monkeys. Every clone carried a golden staff. The Imperial soldiers stared in disbelief. One commander whispered, "What is this?" The original Wukong smiled. "His army." The clones grinned. Then they charged. Attack! The Imperial army fired everything they had. Magic cannons released enormous blasts. Boom! The first wave of Wukong clones disappeared. But the explosion revealed hundreds more behind them. They moved faster than the soldiers could react. One clone struck a tank with his staff. Boom! The armored vehicle flipped through the air. Another clone enlarged his staff. It became several meters long. He swung it across a group of soldiers. The soldiers were thrown away without being killed. Another Wukong transformed into a giant bird and flew over the battlefield. He dropped several clones directly onto an Imperial command vehicle. The vehicle exploded. Boom! The Imperial formation collapsed almost instantly. Hold the line. Where are they coming from? There are too many. Fall back. The order came too late. The Wukong clones moved through the army like a storm. Some transformed into giant beasts. Others became birds and attacked from above. Some became tiny insects and infiltrated the magical vehicles. Everywhere the Imperial army turned, another Wukong was waiting. The battlefield became chaos. The Imperial commander activated his personal armor. A magical barrier surrounded his body. He raised a massive sword. "You think numbers will defeat the Empire?" Wukong appeared in front of him. "Yes." The commander swung. Wukong caught the blade with 2 fingers. The commander froze. Wukong looked at him. But he doesn't need numbers. He pushed the sword away. The commander was thrown backward. Wukong appeared beside him. One strike from the Ruyi Jingu bang shattered the armor. Crack! The commander collapsed. Wukong stood over him. "Tell the others to leave." The commander coughed. "You won't kill us." Wukong looked at the burning forest. "He's angry, not stupid." He turned away. "Leave." The commander stared at him. The Wukong clones had already stopped attacking. Thousands of them stood silently across the battlefield. The Imperial soldiers slowly lowered their weapons. None of them understood what had happened. Their army had entered the forest expecting to eliminate a single monster. Instead, they had encountered an immortal army capable of appearing from a single strand of hair. The survivors began retreating. Wukong watched them leave. Then he looked at the destroyed forest. His expression became annoyed again. He needs a new sleeping place. One of the clones approached. Should they be pursued? Wukong shook his head. No. The clone disappeared. Poof. The others followed. One after another, thousands of Wukongs vanished. Poof, 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 until only the original remained. Wukong picked up his Ruyi Jingu bang. He looked toward the direction of the retreating Imperial army. They'll probably come back. His golden pupils flashed. He could already see the distant magical formations moving toward the battlefield. More troops. More weapons. Something much stronger was approaching. Wukong smiled. Good. He stepped onto the Jindou Yun. The golden cloud rose beneath his feet. Before leaving, he looked back at the ruined forest. But next time, his smile became mischievous. He won't let them leave so easily. The cloud shot into the sky. Boom. Far away, the Eastern Empire's surviving soldiers carried terrible news back to their commanders. The monster they had attacked was not merely powerful. He could create an army from his own hair. And every single member of that army fought like the original. The Empire had wanted to test the strength of the monster nations. Instead, they had awakened something that had been peacefully sleeping. And Sun Wukong was already flying toward Tempest to tell Rimuru about it. Not because he was afraid. Not because he needed help. He simply wanted to see Rimuru's expression when he heard that an entire Imperial army had interrupted his nap. The Eastern Imperial army retreated from the Jura Great Forest. Their formation was broken. Their armored vehicles were destroyed. Their commanders were injured. And the soldiers who had survived could barely explain what had happened. The report reached the Eastern Command several hours later. The Imperial generals gathered inside a military headquarters. One of them slammed his fist against the table. How many enemies? The surviving commander swallowed. We don't know. Estimate. At least 10,000. Silence filled the room. 10,000 monsters. The commander shook his head. No. Then what? The commander looked terrified. 10,000 copies of the same monster. Several generals exchanged glances. Impossible. He pulled hair from his body. What? He pulled out a strand of hair, then thousands of them appeared. Nobody spoke. One general finally laughed. You expect us to believe a monster can create an army from hair? The commander lowered his head. He watched the entire army retreat without pursuing us. Why? He said. We interrupted his sleep. Another silence followed. The general's expression darkened. Prepare the second division. Meanwhile, Wukong had already returned to Tempest. He entered Rimuru's office without knocking. Rimuru was reading several reports. He looked up. You're back. Yes. How was your nap? Ruined. Rimuru sighed. He heard. Wukong sat down. The Eastern Empire attacked his forest. Rimuru's expression immediately became serious. The Eastern Empire? Yes. How many? Wukong shrugged. Many. Did you fight them? Yes. And? Wukong smiled. He won. Rimuru stared at him. He expected that. Wukong leaned back. They're coming again. Rimuru's expression changed. How do you know? Because they were angry. Rimuru sighed. Then Tempest needs to prepare. Wukong looked at him. He'll help. Rimuru smiled. Thanks. Wukong stood. But he wants something. Rimuru immediately became suspicious. What? Food. Rimuru stared at him. You just ate. He's hungry again. Rimuru rubbed his forehead. Fine. Several hours later, the Eastern Empire's second division entered the Jura Great Forest. This force was much larger than the first. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers marched beneath the Imperial banner. Magical tanks moved along the roads. Flying weapons traveled overhead. Large warships floated through the clouds. The army advanced carefully. The commanders had learned from the first battle. They would not underestimate the monster this time. A magical communication crystal activated. All units, maintain formation. Yes, Commander. Do not separate. Yes, Commander. The target is believed to be a single entity. The commander raised his hand. Find him. The army continued forward. Then a strange sound came from the trees. Tap, tap, tap. The soldiers stopped. A single monkey stepped onto the road. He was holding a golden staff. The commander narrowed his eyes. Him. The monkey smiled. Hello. The commander immediately raised his hand. All units, attack. Thousands of weapons activated. Magic circles filled the sky. The monkey sighed. They still haven't learned. He pulled a strand of hair from his body. He blew. Poof. One clone appeared. Then another. Then 10. Then 100. Then 1,000. The soldiers began to panic. There are more. Keep firing. Don't let them surround us. The clones multiplied. Poof. 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 The forest filled with Wukongs. Soon there were thousands. Then tens of thousands. Every single one carried a golden staff. The original Wukong looked toward the Imperial army. Attack. The clones charged. The battlefield exploded into chaos. Boom. The first Imperial tank fired. A Wukong clone jumped over the projectile. Another clone struck the tank from above. Boom. The tank flipped over. 3 more clones landed on it. They ripped open the armored hatch and dragged the soldiers outside. The soldiers immediately surrendered. Elsewhere, an Imperial warship opened fire. 100 magical projectiles descended. The Wukongs jumped. Some transformed into birds. Others transformed into clouds. Some simply swung their staffs. Clash. The projectiles were knocked away. Several exploded harmlessly in the sky. Boom. A group of clones landed on the warship. The ship shook violently. The commander shouted, "Get them off!" A giant Wukong appeared behind him. Boo. The commander froze. The staff struck the floor. Boom. The entire command deck collapsed. The Imperial army tried to regroup. Formation 3. Surround the clones. Activate the anti-monster barriers. Massive barriers appeared. The soldiers believed they had finally found a way to contain the enemy. The original Wukong watched from a nearby hill. He smiled. Interesting. His golden pupils activated. He could see the structure of the barrier. Its energy flowed from several central devices. He raised his staff. Break those. The clones immediately understood. Thousands of Wukongs changed direction. They attacked the barrier generators simultaneously. Boom, boom, boom. The devices exploded one after another. The barrier disappeared. The Imperial Army's formation collapsed. Wukong walked forward. The Ruyi Jingu bang rested on his shoulder. You should run now. The commander shouted. Don't listen to him. Wukong looked at him. He gave you a warning. The commander raised his sword. This army represents the greatest military power in the East. Wukong smiled. Then he will remember it. The commander attacked. Wukong vanished. The sword struck empty air. Wukong appeared behind him. Tap. He touched the commander's shoulder. The commander fell unconscious. Wukong caught him before he hit the ground. He gently placed him on the ground. He told you to run. The battle continued. The Imperial Army had numbers. They had technology. They had magic. But the Wukong clones had something far more difficult to counter. They could appear anywhere. They could transform. They could fly. They could infiltrate. They could reproduce. And every clone possessed a portion of the original's combat ability. The Eastern Army was being dismantled piece by piece. Not slaughtered. Dismantled. Wukong had deliberately ordered the clones to avoid unnecessary killing. Weapons were destroyed. Vehicles were disabled. Commanders were knocked unconscious. Soldiers who surrendered were left alone. Within less than an hour, the massive Imperial formation had collapsed. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers dropped their weapons. One soldier looked around. Thousands of Wukongs surrounded him. He slowly raised his hands. He surrenders. The nearby Wukong clone nodded. Good. The clone disappeared. Poof. The soldier stared. Where did he go? Another clone answered from behind him. Somewhere else. The soldier nearly fainted. The original Wukong stood on a hill overlooking the battlefield. His clones were everywhere. Some were carrying unconscious soldiers. Some were destroying weapons. Others were dismantling magical vehicles. Rimuru finally arrived with several Tempest forces. Benimaru stared at the battlefield. His mouth opened slightly. There are so many. Sue's eyes narrowed. All of them have the same energy signature. Rimuru looked at Wukong. You really made this many? Wukong nodded. Yes. How many? Wukong looked around. He doesn't know. Rimuru sighed. You don't know. He stopped counting. Benimaru looked toward the army of clones. That's terrifying. Wukong smiled. They're useful. Rimuru looked at the defeated Imperial Army. Did you kill anyone? Wukong shook his head. Not unless necessary. Rimuru looked surprised. You restrained them? Yes. Wukong pointed toward the weapons. They were the problem. Rimuru smiled. Good. Then something changed. Wukong's golden pupils suddenly turned toward the eastern horizon. His expression became serious. The surrounding clones also stopped moving. A powerful presence was approaching. Much stronger than the soldiers. Much stronger than the commanders. The air itself began to tremble. Rimuru immediately noticed. What is that? Wukong tightened his grip on the Ruyi Jingu bang. Someone strong. A massive wave of heat swept across the battlefield. Snow began melting in the distance. The clouds turned red. The clones looked toward the sky. Wukong smiled. Finally. Rimuru's expression became tense. Don't tell him you're excited. Wukong looked at him. He's excited. Rimuru sighed. A streak of crimson light appeared across the sky. It moved toward them at incredible speed. The clones raised their staffs. Wukong stepped forward. His golden pupils burned brightly. The approaching presence was unmistakable. A true dragon had entered the battlefield. In this time, even the army of 10,000 Wukongs would face an opponent capable of destroying thousands of them in an instant. The battlefield had gone silent. Thousands of Wukong clones stood among the destroyed Imperial weapons, their golden staffs resting against their shoulders. Rimuru looked toward the sky. A crimson streak was approaching at incredible speed. The temperature suddenly rose. Snow melted. The air began to distort. Wukong's golden pupils narrowed. So that's the one. The crimson light stopped above the battlefield. A woman descended from the sky, surrounded by blazing energy. Velgrind, the scorched dragon. Her eyes immediately focused on Wukong. You are the one causing this disturbance. Wukong pointed toward the destroyed Imperial army. They started it. Velgrind glanced at the soldiers. Then she looked back at him. The Empire is under his protection. Wukong tilted his head. Then he should tell them to stop attacking his friends. Rimuru's expression became serious. Velgrind, there's no need to continue this. Velgrind ignored him. Her aura intensified. The ground beneath her feet melted. He cannot allow an unknown monster to interfere with the Empire. Wukong smiled. Unknown. His golden pupils shone. He knows what you are. Velgrind's expression changed slightly. You can identify her. True dragon. Wukong raised the Ruyi Jingu bang. And strong. Velgrind's crimson aura exploded. Boom. A wave of heat swept across the battlefield. Thousands of Wukong clones were forced backward. Some vanished immediately. Wukong remained standing. His fur and clothes moved violently in the heat. Good. Velgrind disappeared. A crimson fist appeared in front of Wukong. He blocked it with his staff. Clash. The impact sent him flying across the battlefield. Wukong twisted in midair and landed on one hand. He smiled. Fast. Velgrind attacked again. This time, Wukong vanished. The two exchanged positions dozens of times in an instant. Clash. Boom. Clash. Each collision created a shockwave. Velgrind's flames burned through the forest. Wukong's staff shattered the ground beneath them. The clones attempted to surround Velgrind. She released her aura. A massive wave of crimson flames erupted. Boom. Hundreds of clones disappeared. More immediately appeared. Velgrind frowned. There are too many. Wukong appeared behind her. That's why he made them. He swung the Ruyi Jingu bang. Velgrind turned and blocked it. The impact pushed her several meters. Wukong followed with another strike. Velgrind countered with a blazing kick. Wukong blocked it with his arm. The heat tore through the surrounding air. His skin remained unharmed. Velgrind's eyes narrowed. Your body. Wukong smiled. It's difficult to break. He suddenly pulled several strands of hair from his body. And he has more. Poof. Hundreds of clones appeared behind him. They all raised their staffs. Velgrind looked at the enormous army. Then she will destroy all of you. Her aura erupted. Crimson flames covered the sky. The clones charged. Attack. The army of Wukongs moved simultaneously. Some transformed into giant birds. Others became enormous apes. Hundreds swung their staffs together. Velgrind's flames collided with them. Boom. The battlefield disappeared beneath fire and dust. Rimuru raised a barrier around himself and the remaining Tempest forces. Benimaru stared at the battle. They're actually fighting a true dragon. Sue narrowed his eyes. And Wukong is keeping up. The smoke cleared. Velgrind hovered above the battlefield. Several clones had disappeared, but thousands remained. Wukong stood at the center. His golden pupils were brighter than before. He had already analyzed her movements. Her acceleration, her heat, her energy flow, her attack patterns. He smiled. He understands now. Velgrind's expression became cautious. What do you understand? Wukong lowered his staff. How fast you can move. His body suddenly changed. 3 heads appeared. 6 arms emerged from his shoulders. 6 golden staffs formed in his hands. A massive aura exploded from his body. The clones stopped. Rimuru stared. That's new. Wukong's 3 faces smiled simultaneously. Asura. Velgrind's expression became serious. Wukong raised all 6 staffs. Come. Velgrind released her full power. Wukong charged. The two collided above the battlefield. Boom. A massive shockwave spread across the sky. Crimson flames clashed against golden energy. Velgrind struck with overwhelming speed. Wukong blocked with 3 staffs. He countered with the other 3. Clash. Velgrind accelerated again. Wukong followed. Neither gave ground. The battlefield shook with every exchange. Finally, Wukong struck Velgrin directly in the abdomen. Boom! She was launched backward. She stopped herself in midair. Wukong floated several meters away. His 6 arms remained raised. Velgrin touched her abdomen. Her expression was no longer amused. You really are troublesome. Wukong's 3 faces smiled. And you are fun. Rimuru watched the two in disbelief. The battle had only just begun. And for the first time, the Scorched Dragon had encountered an opponent whose body, speed, and strange immortality made even her overwhelming power difficult to suppress. The battlefield had become almost unrecognizable. Crimson flames covered the sky while golden energy continued to spread across the ruined forest. Wukong stood in his 3-headed, 6-armed form. Velgrin hovered several meters away. Neither had surrendered. Velgrin's expression became serious. Then she will stop holding back. Her aura suddenly exploded. Boom! The entire battlefield was engulfed in crimson light. The heat became so intense that the ground melted beneath the flames. Rimuru immediately raised a stronger barrier around himself and the remaining Tempest forces. Everyone, stay back. Wukong remained in the center of the flames. His 6 arms held the Ruyi Jingu bang firmly. The fire consumed his body. For several seconds, nothing could be seen. Velgrin watched carefully. Then, a golden glow appeared inside the flames. Wukong stepped forward. His body was burning. His skin was damaged, but the wounds were already disappearing. Velgrin's eyes narrowed. He regenerated. Wukong smiled. Yes. His body continued healing. Broken flesh restored itself. Burned skin returned to normal. Even the damage to his spiritual body began disappearing. Velgrin increased the pressure. The flames became brighter. Then she will destroy you completely. The fire intensified. Boom! Wukong disappeared beneath the crimson inferno. Rimuru's expression became tense. Wukong. The flames continued burning. Velgrin watched silently. Then Wukong's voice came from inside. Not enough. A golden shockwave erupted. Boom! The flames were pushed outward. Wukong emerged. His 6 arms spread wide. His 3 faces wore identical smiles. The wounds on his body had completely vanished. Velgrin stared at him. What are you? Wukong laughed. Immortal. Velgrin's eyes sharpened. Nothing is truly immortal. Wukong pointed one staff toward her. He is. Velgrin disappeared. In an instant, she appeared directly in front of him. Her fist struck his chest. Boom! Wukong was sent flying. He crashed through several mountains. Crack! The impact created an enormous crater. Velgrin immediately followed. She appeared above him and released another concentrated blast. Boom! The mountain disappeared. Rimuru watched anxiously. That attack was powerful. The smoke slowly cleared. Wukong stood at the bottom of the crater. His body was severely damaged. His chest had been burned. One of his arms hung loosely. Then the wounds began to heal. The arm returned to its original position. His chest regenerated. His golden pupils opened. Velgrin landed in front of him. How many times can you recover? Wukong smiled. As many as necessary. Velgrin stared. She understood the problem. Destroying his body was not enough. Even if his physical form was destroyed, something within him continued to restore it. His immortality wasn't based on a single source. It was layered. Wukong's golden pupils suddenly shone brighter. He understands your power now. Velgrin frowned. What? Your flames don't simply burn the body. Wukong raised one of his staffs. They attack energy, spirit, and existence. Velgrin's expression changed. You analyzed it. Yes. Wukong smiled. And he knows how to resist it. His body suddenly changed. Golden energy spread across his skin. The 6 arms tightened around their weapons. A protective layer of spiritual energy formed around his body. Velgrin attacked. Wukong raised his staff. The crimson flames struck. Boom! But this time, the flames did not penetrate as deeply. Wukong pushed forward through the attack. Velgrin's eyes widened. He adapted. Wukong swung one staff. Velgrin blocked it. Clash! Another staff struck from the opposite direction. Clash. A third struck from above. Boom. Velgrind was forced backward. Wukong pursued her. His 6 arms moved independently. One attacked. Another defended. 2 more changed the size of their staffs. The remaining arms prepared another strike. Velgrind blocked several attacks but was gradually pushed back. Finally, Wukong struck her directly. Boom. Velgrind crashed into the ground. She immediately stood. The two stared at each other. Velgrind's flames remained intense. Wukong's golden aura burned around his body. Neither was willing to retreat. Then Rimuru stepped forward. That's enough. Both turned toward him. Rimuru looked at the battlefield. If you keep going, there's going to be nothing left. Wukong looked around. Most of the forest had already been destroyed. He lowered his staff. He agrees. Velgrind remained silent. She looked at Wukong one last time. She understands now. Wukong tilted his head. Understands what? You're not an ordinary monster. Wukong smiled. He knows. Velgrind turned toward the surviving Imperial soldiers. Withdraw. The soldiers immediately obeyed. Their army had suffered catastrophic losses. But their commander had survived. The Empire's objective had failed. Velgrind looked back at Wukong. This isn't over. Wukong's smile widened. He'll be waiting. Velgrind disappeared into the crimson sky. The remaining flames slowly faded. Wukong's 3 heads and 6 arms returned to normal. Rimuru approached him. Are you all right? Wukong looked at his body. Yes. Rimuru examined him carefully. You were almost completely destroyed. Wukong shrugged. But he came back. Rimuru sighed. That's exactly what worries him. Wukong laughed. Then he looked toward the eastern horizon. The Empire had retreated. Velgrind had withdrawn. But the battle had revealed something important. Wukong's immortality was not merely a resistance to death. It was an ability that could adapt. Every attempt to destroy him gave his body more information. And every battle made his existence harder to overcome. Wukong picked up his Ruyi Jingu bang. Now he wants lunch. Rimuru stared at him. After all that, Wukong nodded. He's hungry. Rimuru sighed. Fine. Wukong smiled. The battle with the Scorched Dragon had ended. But deep inside Wukong's soul, something had begun to change. His unique skill had absorbed the data from the confrontation. And somewhere within its golden core, a new evolution was quietly taking shape. The battlefield had finally become quiet. The Eastern Imperial forces had withdrawn. Velgrind had disappeared beyond the eastern horizon. The remaining Tempest soldiers were busy securing the area and treating the wounded. Wukong stood alone on top of a broken hill. His eyes were closed. Inside his soul, something was changing. The energy he had gained from his battle with Velgrind continued circulating through his body. His unique skill was analyzing everything. The flames, the acceleration, the spiritual pressure, the attacks that had damaged his body, the methods he had used to recover. All of it was being processed. Then a familiar voice appeared inside his mind. Evolution conditions have been fulfilled. Wukong opened his eyes. Evolution, unique skill. Heavenly Sage, Wukong. Evolution process beginning. Golden light surrounded his body. The Magicules in the surrounding area began moving toward him. Rimuru noticed the sudden change. Wukong. Wukong remained silent. His golden pupils became brighter. The energy within his soul expanded. His connection with the laws of the world deepened. The previous skill began changing. Its structure was reconstructed. Its abilities were compressed. Then something new appeared. Ultimate skill. Victorious Fighting Buddha. Wukong's eyes widened slightly. The golden light disappeared. He looked at his hands. His body felt different. Stronger. Faster. More stable. His spiritual energy had become far denser. His immortality had also changed. It no longer simply restored damage. It could now adapt to attacks that had previously harmed him. Wukong smiled. Interesting. Rimuru approached. What happened? Wukong looked at him. He evolved. Rimuru immediately activated his analysis. Unknown ultimate skill detected. Analysis initiated. Rimuru's expression became complicated. You created an ultimate skill. Wukong nodded. Yes. What does it do? Wukong smiled. Many things. Rimuru sighed. That's not an explanation. Wukong raised one finger. First, combat analysis. A golden light appeared around his eyes. He can understand an opponent's movement faster than before. A second finger. Second, immortal adaptation. His skin briefly glowed. Attacks that have already failed to kill him become less effective the next time. Rimuru's eyes widened. That's dangerous. Wukong raised a third finger. Third, transformation mastery. His body briefly changed into a bird. Then a tiger. Then a giant ape. Then returned to normal. His transformations are now faster. Rimuru nodded slowly. And the fourth. Wukong grinned. Fighting. Rimuru stared. That's it. Yes. Rimuru couldn't help laughing. Of course. Wukong suddenly raised his staff. The Ruyi Jingu bang began to glow. He swung it once. Boom. A distant mountain split apart. Rimuru's eyes widened. You didn't even enlarge it. Wukong looked at the staff. He doesn't need to. The weapon returned to its normal size. Its golden surface shimmered. Wukong could feel a new connection between the weapon and his ultimate skill. The staff could now respond to his thoughts faster than before. It could change size instantly. Its weight could increase without warning. Its strikes could carry spiritual energy alongside physical force. Wukong smiled. Better. A sudden voice interrupted them. Wukong. Milim flew down from the sky. She landed directly in front of him. He heard you evolved. Wukong looked at her. Yes. Milim's eyes sparkled. Fight him. Rimuru immediately groaned. Not again. Milim ignored him. Just one fight. Wukong smiled. He's stronger now. Milim became even more excited. Then fight him. Rimuru stepped between them. Absolutely not. Milim pouted. Why? Because the last battle destroyed half the forest. Wukong looked around. He can fix it. Rimuru stared at him. With what? Wukong pulled several strands of hair. Rimuru's expression immediately changed. Don't. Wukong laughed. He put the hair back. Fine. That evening, Wukong returned to Tempest. The news of his evolution had already spread. Benimaru, Sue, Shuna, and several other powerful monsters gathered around him. Benimaru looked serious. Lord Rimuru said your skill evolved into an ultimate skill. Wukong nodded. Yes. Does that mean you're now a true demon lord? Wukong shook his head. No. Benimaru looked surprised. Then what are you? Wukong smiled. Wukong. Benimaru became silent. Sue quietly nodded. That answer was completely in character. Wukong didn't need a title. He didn't need a throne. He didn't need a race classification. His strength spoke for itself. Later that night, Wukong returned to the roof of his house. Rimuru joined him. You really aren't interested in ruling anything? Wukong shook his head. No. What about becoming a demon lord? Boring. What about becoming stronger? Wukong looked toward the moon. That is interesting. Rimuru smiled. He thought you'd say that. Wukong leaned back. This world keeps giving him stronger opponents. That's true. First Veldora. Yes. Then Guy. Yes. Then Velgrind. Rimuru nodded. Wukong smiled. There must be more. Rimuru's expression became serious. There are. Wukong's golden pupils turned toward him. How many? Rimuru looked toward the distant horizon. Too many to count. Wukong laughed. Excellent. Far away, beyond the eastern territories, Velgrind stood in silence. Her battle with Wukong continued replaying in her mind. His strange transformations, his ability to adapt, his immortality, and the moment his body recovered from an attack that should have destroyed him. Velgrind narrowed her eyes. That creature. She looked toward the west. He evolved. At the same time, another presence had also noticed the change. Guy Crimson stood inside his territory. His crimson eyes opened. A faint smile appeared on his face. So the monkey finally evolved. He could sense the new pressure. It was different from before. More refined. More dangerous. Guy laughed softly. Victorious fighting Buddha. He already knew what that meant. Their next battle would be far more interesting. Back in Tempest, Wukong sat beneath the moonlight. His new ultimate skill remained quietly active. Ultimate skill, Victorious Fighting Buddha. The golden energy inside his soul continued circulating. There was no dramatic transformation. No throne, no crown, no ceremony, only a stronger Wukong. He picked up the Ruyi Jingu bang and rested it against his shoulder. Then he smiled. This world is getting better. The Monkey King had evolved. And with his new ultimate skill, the balance of power in the world had shifted once again. The days following Wukong's evolution were unusually peaceful. Tempest had begun rebuilding the areas damaged during the battle with the Eastern Empire. Wukong occasionally helped, although his definition of helping was questionable. He would lift an enormous tree with one hand, carry it several kilometers, and plant it somewhere completely different. Rimuru eventually stopped asking where he was getting the trees. Then the sky changed. A strange pressure spread across the world. Wukong was sitting on the roof of Tempest's central building when his golden pupils suddenly opened. He looked upward. The clouds were moving against the wind. A massive Magicule disturbance was forming high above the world. Rimuru rushed outside. Wukong. Wukong stood. He sees it. A crack appeared in the sky. Crack. The clouds split apart. Something existed beyond the opening. Not monsters. Not demons. Angels. Thousands of them emerged from the dimensional rift. Their wings covered the sky. Their holy aura descended over the forest. The monsters of Tempest immediately became alert. Benimaru drew his sword. Sue disappeared into the shadows. Xian raised her weapon. Rimuru looked at the sky. The heavenly army. Wukong stared at the angels. His golden pupils activated. He could see their spiritual structures. Their energy. Their formations. Their weapons. Then his expression became amused. They're coming here. Rimuru looked at him. This isn't funny. He knows. Wukong picked up his Ruyi Jingu bang. But they made the mistake of coming to his home. The first wave descended. Thousands of angels spread across the sky. A commanding figure appeared at the center of the formation. His presence alone caused the surrounding air to become heavy. The monsters below felt pressure against their souls. Rimuru's expression hardened. Everyone, stay behind him. Wukong stepped forward. Rimuru grabbed his shoulder. Wait. Wukong looked back. What? Don't rush in alone. Wukong smiled. He won't. He pulled a strand of hair from his body. Rimuru's eyes widened. Wukong. Wukong blew. Poof. One clone appeared. Then 10. Then 100. Then thousands. The army of Wukong spread across the forest. Each one held a golden staff. The angels stared down. One of them shouted, "Prepare for annihilation." Wukong's clones raised their staffs. The original stood at the front. Try. The angelic army descended. The first collision shook the sky. Boom. Golden staffs struck against holy weapons. The angels moved in coordinated formations. Their attacks were precise. Their magic was powerful. But the clones were unpredictable. One Wukong transformed into a bird and flew through an angelic formation. Another became a giant ape and smashed several angels out of the sky. Others created dozens of transformations simultaneously. The battlefield became filled with golden light and white wings. Rimuru watched from below. They're actually holding them back. Benimaru nodded. The clones are adapting to their formation. Wukong's ultimate skill was processing every movement. Combat pattern analyzed. Angelic formation identified. Optimal counterattack calculated. The original Wukong suddenly raised his staff. Left side. Hundreds of clones changed direction at once. The angelic formation collapsed. Clash. Boom. The angels were scattered. Several attempted to retreat and reorganize. Wukong appeared above them. Too slow. His staff expanded. It struck the air. Boom. The resulting shockwave sent dozens of angels crashing into the ground. Then the dimensional rift widened. The pressure increased. Wukong looked up. A new presence had appeared. Far stronger than the ordinary angels. His golden pupils focused. There. Rimuru immediately understood. Feldway. A figure emerged from the rift. The heavenly army became silent. Feldway looked down at the battlefield. His eyes settled on Wukong. So you are the monkey who has been disrupting the balance of this world. Wukong rested the staff on his shoulder. And you're the one sending all these noisy birds. Several angels became furious. Feldway raised one hand. They immediately stopped. You possess a strange power. Wukong smiled. Yes. You have no place in this world. Wukong's expression became colder. He lives here now. Feldway stared at him. You will be removed. Wukong laughed. Try. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Feldway released his power. The heavenly army responded. Thousands of angelic weapons aimed toward Tempest. Rimuru immediately activated his defensive abilities. Everyone, prepare. Wukong stepped ahead of the entire army. His golden aura spread outward. The ground beneath his feet cracked. Crack. His ultimate skill activated. Victorious fighting Buddha. Golden energy covered his body. His eyes became brighter. The Ruyi Jingu Bang transformed into a massive golden staff. Wukong pointed it toward the sky. He has a question. Feldway narrowed his eyes. What? Wukong grinned. How many angels did he get to beat today? Feldway's expression darkened. All of them. Wukong's smile widened. Good answer. He raised the staff. Thousands of Wukong clones appeared behind him. The angels prepared to attack. For a brief moment, both armies faced each other. Then Wukong shouted, "Charge!" The golden army rushed forward. The heavenly army descended. Boom! The sky exploded with light. Rimuru watched as thousands of Wukongs clashed with the angels. This was no longer a simple invasion. It was the beginning of another war. And this time, the battlefield was right above Tempest. Wukong laughed as he charged directly toward Feldway. Heaven again. His golden pupils burned. He's been there before. The Ruyi Jingu Bang grew larger in his hands. And he remembers how much fun it was to break it. The sky above Tempest had become a battlefield. Thousands of angels descended from the dimensional rift while countless Wukong clones moved between them. Golden staffs collided with holy weapons. Boom! White light spread across the clouds. Rimuru stood below the battlefield, watching the situation carefully. There are too many. Seal immediately responded inside his mind. The angelic forces are being coordinated through a central command structure. Rimuru looked toward the highest point of the battlefield. Feldway was standing there. His presence remained calm despite the chaos around him. So he's controlling the army. Rimuru narrowed his eyes. Then he noticed something else. Wukong had stopped attacking. The Monkey King stood in midair on the Jindou Yun. His golden pupils were fixed on Feldway. He could see something that ordinary perception could not. Thousands of spiritual connections stretched between Feldway and the angelic army. Every movement, every command, every attack, they were all connected. Wukong smiled. He found it. Feldway noticed his gaze. What are you looking at? Wukong raised his staff. The strings. Feldway's expression changed slightly. Wukong's golden pupils became brighter. The world around him seemed to slow. Every angelic movement became clear. Every magical command became visible. Every connection between their minds could be followed. Ultimate skill. Victorious fighting Buddha. Golden pupil analysis activated. Spiritual command network detected. Wukong grinned. Interesting. Feldway immediately understood. Stop him. Hundreds of angels rushed toward Wukong. He didn't move. The angels attacked simultaneously. Clash. Wukong blocked the first strike. Another came from behind. He transformed into a bird and avoided it. 3 more attacked. He split into multiple clones. The angels struck empty air. Wukong reappeared above them. Too predictable. He swung his staff. Boom. The angels were sent flying. But Feldway immediately issued another command. The remaining angels changed formation. Wukong's golden pupils followed the movement. He saw the command before the army executed it. Left. His clones moved. Right. Another group moved. Behind. The entire army of Wukongs reacted before the angels completed their attacks. The heavenly formation collapsed. Rimuru stared. He's predicting them. Seal confirmed it. Wukong is reading the command network directly. Rimuru smiled. That's ridiculous. Feldway raised his hand. The battlefield suddenly became still. The angels stopped. The clones also paused. A massive pressure descended. Rimuru immediately felt it. What is that? Ciel's response was immediate. Danger detected. High-level spiritual domination. Wukong's expression became serious. Feldway looked directly at him. Your mind will be no different from anyone else's. A powerful spiritual force spread across the battlefield. The angels became completely still. The force moved toward Wukong. It entered his spiritual body. For a moment, nothing happened. Wukong stood motionless. Rimuru's eyes widened. Wukong. Feldway smiled. The monkey has been subdued. Inside Wukong's mind, a massive spiritual pressure attempted to suppress his consciousness. The power was precise. It wasn't attacking his body. It was trying to take control of his thoughts. Commands began appearing inside his consciousness. Stop. Kneel. Obey. Wukong stared at them. Then he laughed. No. The spiritual commands cracked. Crack. Feldway's expression changed. Wukong's golden pupils opened. He doesn't obey. The spiritual domination shattered. Boom. A golden shockwave erupted from his body. The angels surrounding him were thrown backward. Feldway stared in disbelief. Impossible. Wukong pointed his staff at him. His mind belongs to him. His aura expanded. Nobody else gets to touch it. Feldway's expression became colder. Then he will increase the pressure. The spiritual force returned. This time, it was far stronger. The sky darkened. The dimensional rift began shaking. Wukong's body was pushed downward. The pressure attempted to penetrate his soul again. Wukong gritted his teeth. His ultimate skill responded. Resistance confirmed. Foreign domination detected. Adaptation initiated. Golden energy spread through his soul. The foreign influence began breaking apart. Wukong raised his head. He told you. Feldway narrowed his eyes. What? Wukong smiled. Don't touch his mind. He vanished. In an instant, he appeared directly in front of Feldway. The Ruyi Jingu bang was already swinging. Feldway raised his arm. Clash. The impact shook the dimension. Feldway was forced backward. Wukong followed. Another strike. Clash. Feldway blocked it. Another. Boom. The surrounding space cracked. Feldway retreated several meters. Wukong grinned. You're slower when you're worried. Feldway's eyes narrowed. You analyzed his ability. Yes. Wukong raised the staff. And now he understands yours. Feldway's expression darkened. The battle had changed. Wukong was no longer simply fighting the heavenly army. He was dismantling the system that allowed Feldway to control it. His golden pupils tracked every spiritual connection. Every command. Every movement. Every weakness. Then he transmitted the information to Rimuru. Rimuru suddenly received a flood of data. Ciel immediately processed it. Enemy command structure mapped. Dimensional coordinates acquired. Rimuru smiled. Perfect. He looked toward the battlefield. Wukong found their weak point. Benimaru raised his sword. Then we attack. Rimuru nodded. Yes. Tempest's forces moved. The counterattack began. Above them, Wukong and Feldway continued exchanging blows. The Ruyi Jingu bang collided with Feldway's weapon. Clash. Wukong transformed into a giant ape. He struck downward. Boom. Feldway avoided the blow. Wukong immediately became a bird and attacked from behind. Feldway turned. Clash. Wukong became himself again. His staff struck Feldway's barrier. Crack. The barrier developed a fracture. Feldway's eyes widened. Wukong smiled. Found it. He struck the same point again. Crack. The fracture spread. Feldway immediately retreated. Wukong followed. Below them, Rimuru's forces had begun destroying the angelic formations. The heavenly army was losing coordination. Feldway realized what was happening. You've turned his own army against him. Wukong laughed. Not his army. He raised his staff. Their army. The final command connection shattered. Boom. Thousands of angels lost their synchronized formation. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Wukong hovered above the broken formation. His golden pupils remained fixed on Feldway. Now it's fair. Feldway's expression became grim. The heavenly army had lost its greatest advantage, and the Monkey King had proven something far more dangerous than his physical strength. His mind could not be controlled. His perception could not easily be deceived. And once he understood an enemy's system, destroying it was only a matter of time. The heavenly army had lost its formation. Without Feldway's direct control, thousands of angels were forced to fight independently. Tempest's forces immediately took advantage of the opening. Rimuru moved across the battlefield, destroying one magical formation after another. Above him, Wukong remained focused on Feldway. The two stood several hundred meters apart. Feldway's expression was cold. "You have interfered enough." Wukong rested the Ruyi Jingu bang against his shoulder. "He's just getting started." Feldway raised his hand. The dimensional rift behind him expanded. A massive amount of energy poured from the other side. The sky darkened. The surrounding space began to distort. Rimuru looked upward. "That's not good." Seal immediately responded. "Dimensional energy concentration is increasing rapidly. Estimated output exceeds the previous angelic assault." Wukong's golden pupils narrowed. He could see what Feldway was preparing. A massive dimensional fortress was forming beyond the rift. Its walls were covered in magical formations. Hundreds of angelic weapons were mounted across its surface. Feldway looked toward Wukong. "This is the fortress of heaven." Wukong tilted his head. "That's a big building." Feldway's expression tightened. "You will be erased with it." Wukong smiled. He doesn't like big buildings. The fortress began descending. Its enormous structure covered the sky. The pressure alone forced many monsters to their knees. Rimuru immediately expanded his barrier. "Everyone, retreat." The fortress released its weapons. Thousands of beams descended. Boom. The ground exploded. Tempest's defensive barrier shook violently. Wukong looked upward. His golden pupils scanned the entire structure. He saw its foundation, its energy core, its dimensional anchors, its connection to the heavenly realm. He smiled. He found the problem. Feldway noticed. "What are you planning?" Wukong raised his staff. "Breaking it." Feldway laughed. "That fortress exists beyond ordinary dimensions." Wukong nodded. "Good." The Ruyi Jingu bang began to glow. "Then he needs a bigger stick." The staff expanded. Once. Twice. Then again. Its golden surface stretched through the clouds. The lower end remained in Wukong's hands. The upper end continued growing. It pierced the clouds, then the atmosphere, then the dimensional boundary. Rimuru stared upward. "He's actually doing it." Seal calculated the size. Ruyi Jingu bang continues expanding. Dimensional penetration confirmed. The staff grew beyond the visible horizon. The heavenly fortress suddenly shook. Feldway's expression changed. "Stop." Wukong grinned. Too late. The enormous golden pillar crossed through the dimensional rift. It struck the fortress. Boom. The entire structure trembled. Several angelic weapons exploded. Boom. Cracks spread across the fortress walls. Crack. Feldway immediately released a massive amount of energy. The fortress repaired itself. Wukong pushed harder. The staff grew larger. The dimensional walls began collapsing around it. "You can't destroy this fortress." Feldway shouted. Wukong laughed. "He doesn't need to destroy the fortress." He looked upward. "He only needs to break the supports." His golden pupils flashed. The staff suddenly split into several smaller extensions. Each one struck a different dimensional anchor. Boom, boom, boom. The fortress shook violently. Its energy supply began collapsing. Seal immediately detected the change. Dimensional stability declining rapidly. Rimuru smiled. He did it. Feldway flew toward Wukong. His weapon was covered in overwhelming energy. "You will not destroy what belongs to heaven." Wukong pulled the staff back. It returned to its normal size. He held it with both hands. Then heaven should have built it better. Feldway attacked. Wukong blocked. Clash. The impact tore open the air. Feldway attacked again. Wukong dodged. Another strike. Wukong transformed into a bird. The attack missed. He became a giant ape. His fist struck Feldway. Boom. Feldway was thrown backward. Wukong returned to normal. His golden pupils remained locked onto the fortress. It was collapsing. The dimensional anchors were failing one after another. Crack. A massive section of the fortress broke away. Then another. Boom. The entire structure began falling into the dimensional void. The angelic forces inside panicked. The fortress is collapsing. Retreat. Open the gates. Wukong looked at them. Too late. He raised the Ruyi Jingu bang. The staff expanded one final time. It struck the center of the fortress. Boom. The entire heavenly citadel shattered. Thousands of fragments flew across the dimensional void. The rift above Tempest began closing. Feldway stared at the destruction. His expression was filled with anger. Wukong landed on the Jindou Yun. He smiled. Problem solved. The remaining angels attempted to regroup. Rimuru immediately launched a counterattack. Now, Tempest's forces advanced. Benimaru released a massive flame attack. Sue's clones struck from multiple directions. Xian charged directly through the remaining formations. The angels were forced to retreat. Above them, Feldway remained alone. Wukong slowly floated toward him. Heaven lost its building. Feldway glared at him. This changes nothing. Wukong raised an eyebrow. It changes quite a lot. He pointed behind Feldway. The dimensional rift was disappearing. Your army has nowhere to hide. Feldway looked back. The last fragment of the heavenly fortress vanished. The rift began collapsing. Feldway's expression became serious. Wukong spun the Ruyi Jingu bang. Next time, bring something stronger. Feldway stared at him. Then he disappeared into the closing dimensional space. Wukong didn't pursue. Rimuru flew up beside him. You let him escape. Wukong nodded. Yes. Why? Wukong looked at the fading rift. Because he will come back. Rimuru sighed. That's exactly what he was afraid of. Wukong smiled. Good. Rimuru stared at him. Why is that good? Because he hasn't finished having fun. Rimuru shook his head. The heavenly fortress was gone. The invasion had been pushed back. But Feldway was still alive. And somewhere beyond the collapsing dimensions, the leader of the angelic army was already preparing his next move. Wukong rested his staff on his shoulder. His golden pupils remained fixed on the sky. The battle was far from over. The battlefield above Tempest had finally begun to calm. The heavenly fortress was gone. The dimensional rift was collapsing. Most of the angelic forces had already retreated. But the war was not finished. Wukong stood on the Jindou Yun, watching the remaining angels gather around Feldway. His golden pupils scanned the battlefield. There were still thousands of them. Rimuru flew beside him. They're regrouping. Wukong nodded. Yes. Feldway raised his weapon. The remaining angels immediately formed a massive formation. Their holy energy connected together. A huge magic circle appeared in the sky. Rimuru's expression became serious. They're preparing something big. Seal confirmed it. High-density energy accumulation detected. Estimated target. Tempest. Wukong looked at the magic circle. They're going to attack the city. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. Then we stop them. Wukong shook his head. No. Rimuru looked at him. What? Wukong smiled. He will. Wukong stepped forward. His golden aura spread across the sky. The remaining angels immediately noticed him. Feldway pointed toward him. Eliminate the monkey. Thousands of angels charged. Wukong didn't move. He simply raised his Ruyi Jingu bang. Golden light gathered around the weapon. His ultimate skill activated. Victorious fighting Buddha. Maximum combat output available. Wukong's eyes became brighter. Come. The angels attacked. The first wave surrounded him. Wukong disappeared. He reappeared between them. Clash. One angel was struck. Then another. Then another. His staff moved faster than their eyes could follow. Clash. Boom. Crack. The formation collapsed. Wukong transformed into a giant bird and flew through the center of the army. Hundreds of clones appeared behind him. Poof. Each clone carried a staff. They charged. The angels attempted to defend themselves. But the clones attacked from every direction. Some transformed into giant beasts. Others became birds. Some became tiny creatures and slipped through the angelic defenses. The formation began collapsing. Feldway watched in disbelief. Again, Wukong appeared directly in front of him. Yes. Feldway attacked. Wukong blocked. Clash. Feldway struck again. Wukong dodged. The Ruyi Jingu bang struck his chest. Boom. Feldway was thrown backward. He stopped himself in midair. Wukong pointed his staff toward the remaining army. He's giving you one chance. Feldway glared at him. You think this changes anything? Wukong smiled. Yes. He raised his hand. Thousands of clones stopped attacking. They all looked toward the sky. Feldway's expression changed. What are you doing? Wukong's golden pupils flashed. Watch. The clones suddenly disappeared. Poof. Thousands became hundreds. Hundreds became dozens. Then only the original remained. The entire battlefield became strangely quiet. Rimuru looked at Wukong. Where did they go? Wukong pointed toward the sky. Away. Rimuru's eyes widened. The clones had moved beyond the battlefield. They were surrounding the remaining angelic forces from every direction. Feldway realized it too late. No. Wukong raised the Ruyi Jingu bang. This is their last chance. The golden staff began expanding. Its size increased. Then increased again. The sky darkened beneath its enormous shadow. Wukong's aura changed. Golden energy mixed with the spiritual power of his ultimate skill. The Ruyi Jingu bang became surrounded by a massive golden sphere. Rimuru stared. What is he preparing? Wukong looked at the angelic army. Staff of cosmic annihilation. The angels raised their weapons. Feldway shouted. Defend. A gigantic barrier appeared. Wukong swung the staff. Boom. A golden wave exploded across the battlefield. It wasn't ordinary energy. It passed through physical barriers. It passed through magical defenses. It struck the spiritual bodies of the angels directly. The angelic formation shattered. Boom. One after another, the angels disappeared from the battlefield. The golden wave continued forward. Feldway raised every defensive ability he possessed. The impact struck him. Boom. He was thrown through the sky. His body slammed into a dimensional barrier. Crack. Wukong continued pushing the staff forward. The golden energy expanded across the battlefield. The remaining angelic forces were erased from the formation. No screams filled the sky. No weapons remained. Only fading golden light. Rimuru watched silently. The battlefield had become empty. The angelic army was gone. Wukong slowly lowered his staff. The golden energy faded. His clones returned one after another. Poof. 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 The sky became clear. Feldway was still alive. He hovered in the distance, heavily damaged. His expression was filled with anger. Wukong looked toward him. He told you to leave. Feldway clenched his weapon. You think you've won? Wukong shrugged. Yes. Feldway disappeared into a dimensional opening. This time, Wukong didn't pursue him. Rimuru flew closer. Why didn't you finish him? Wukong looked at the fading dimensional portal. Because he wasn't the target. Rimuru blinked. Then what was? Wukong pointed toward the battlefield. His army. Rimuru looked around. The sky was empty. The angelic forces had been completely driven away. Tempest remained standing. Wukong had done exactly what he intended. He had not chased Feldway. He had destroyed the army supporting him. Rimuru smiled. That's actually a pretty smart strategy. Wukong grinned. He's smart. Rimuru sighed. He knew you'd say that. Later that evening, the monsters of Tempest gathered in the city. The battle had ended. The angelic army had been defeated. The dimensional fortress had been destroyed. And the Eastern Empire had temporarily withdrawn. Benimaru looked toward the sky. The war is finally over. Sue shook his head. Not yet. Benimaru looked at him. Sue pointed toward the fading dimensional traces. Feldway survived. Rimuru nodded. He's right. Wukong was sitting nearby, eating fruit. He'll come back. Rimuru looked at him. You sound happy about that. Wukong smiled. He is. Why? Wukong took another bite. Because next time, he might bring someone stronger. Rimuru stared at him. You really are impossible. Wukong laughed. Above Tempest, The last traces of the heavenly invasion disappeared. The world had survived another assault. But the name of Sun Wukong had now spread far beyond the Jura Great Forest. To the demons, to the demon lords, to the true dragons, and now, to the surviving forces of heaven. The Monkey King had defeated an army that had descended from another realm. Yet he had no interest in claiming victory. He simply rested his staff against his shoulder and looked toward the night sky. Next time, don't interrupt his dinner. Rimuru sighed. That's what he's worried about. Wukong nodded. Very much. The war had finally ended. The angelic army had withdrawn. The Eastern Empire had stopped its advance. The dimensional rifts above Tempest had disappeared. For the first time in weeks, the Jura Great Forest was quiet again. Wukong sat on the highest branch of a massive tree, eating fruit while watching the sunrise. Rimuru approached from below. You're awake early. Wukong looked down. He was hungry. Rimuru sighed. Of course. He climbed onto the branch and sat nearby. For several moments, neither said anything. The golden morning light spread across the forest. Then Rimuru spoke. The war is over. Wukong nodded. Yes. Feldway survived. He'll come back. Rimuru looked at him. Probably. Wukong smiled. Good. Rimuru shook his head. He still doesn't understand why you're happy about that. Strong opponents are interesting. And fighting. Also interesting. Rimuru laughed. At least he's honest. Several days later, Tempest held a celebration. The monsters filled the streets. Food covered every table. Music echoed throughout the city. Wukong had already claimed an entire table for himself. Milim sat beside him. Veldora sat on the other side. The three were eating at an alarming speed. This is good, Milim shouted. Wukong nodded. Yes. Veldora grabbed another plate. He agrees. Rimuru watched from a distance. They're going to eat everything. Shuna smiled. There is still plenty. Rimuru looked at the mountains of food. Then he looked at Wukong. He isn't worried about him. Wukong heard him. Good. Rimuru sighed. That wasn't permission. Wukong laughed. Later that night, everyone gathered outside the city. Guy Crimson had arrived. Several demon lords were present. Even Veldora had stopped eating long enough to listen. Rimuru stood at the front. There is one thing he wants to announce. Everyone looked toward him. Rimuru turned toward Wukong. Wukong stood. He looked at the gathered monsters. The war is finished. Nobody spoke. He doesn't want a throne. He pointed toward the sky. He doesn't want territory. Then he pointed toward himself. And he doesn't want anyone calling him a demon lord. Milim raised her hand. Then what is he? Wukong thought for a moment. Then he smiled. Wukong. Milim nodded. That's a good title. Guy laughed. Simple. Rimuru smiled. But the world still needs a name for him. Wukong shrugged. Let them choose. Guy stepped forward. Then he has a suggestion. Everyone looked at him. Guy's crimson eyes settled on Wukong. The great sage equal to heaven. The crowd became quiet. Wukong stared at him. Then he laughed. He likes it. Milim immediately shouted. The great sage equal to heaven. Veldora raised his fist. Excellent. Rimuru smiled. Then it's settled. The following weeks were peaceful. Wukong traveled through Tempest whenever he wanted. Sometimes he visited the city. Sometimes he disappeared into the forest. Sometimes he flew across the world on the Jindou Yun. He visited mountains, deserts, ancient ruins, human kingdoms, demon territories. He even visited the ice continent again. Guy was waiting for him there. You're back. Wukong landed. Yes. Guy crossed his arms. Looking for trouble. Wukong smiled. Maybe. Guy laughed. Good. The two stood facing each other. Then Wukong pulled a fruit from behind his back. Want some? Guy stared. Where did you get that? He borrowed it. From where? Wukong smiled. Somewhere. Guy shook his head. You're impossible. Wukong laughed. One evening, Wukong returned to the forest where he had first awakened. The trees had grown back. The damaged ground had healed. The place was peaceful again. He sat beneath the same tree where he had once slept. He placed the Ruyi Jingu bang beside him. His golden pupils looked toward the sky. He remembered the world he had once left behind. The battles, the heavens, the mountains, the long journey, and the people he had met. But he didn't stay there for long. This world had given him something different. New opponents, new friends, new places, and freedom. Wukong smiled. This world isn't bad. A voice suddenly came from behind. Talking to himself again, Wukong turned. Rimuru stood there. Wukong laughed. He was talking to the sky. Rimuru sat beside him. Same thing. Wukong looked at the moon. What will you do now? Rimuru asked. Wukong thought for a moment. Travel. That's all. Eat. Rimuru smiled. Of course. Fight. He expected that. And cause trouble. Rimuru sighed. He definitely expected that. Wukong stood. The Jindou Yun appeared beneath his feet. He placed the Ruyi Jingu bang across his shoulder. Then he's leaving. Rimuru looked up. Where? Wukong grinned. He doesn't know. The golden cloud rose. Then Wukong stopped. He looked down at Rimuru. If he finds something interesting, he'll come back. Rimuru smiled. He'll hold you to that. Wukong laughed. The Jindou Yun accelerated. Whoosh. The Monkey King disappeared beyond the clouds. Far above the world, Wukong flew freely. His golden pupils observed everything beneath him. Cities, forests, mountains, oceans. Countless creatures lived across the world. Some were strong, some were weak, some were peaceful, others were searching for power. Wukong simply continued flying. No throne followed him, no army followed him, no kingdom belonged to him. Only his staff, his cloud, his immortality, and his endless curiosity. The world had tried to place him inside its hierarchy. It had failed. Sun Wukong was neither demon lord nor true dragon. He was neither angel nor demon. He was simply an immortal monkey who had entered a strange new world and decided to stay. The great sage equal to heaven had found another sky to cross. And somewhere beyond the horizon, another adventure was already waiting. Wukong smiled. Let's see what this world has next. The golden cloud disappeared into the distance. And the Monkey King continued his journey beneath the endless sky.
Alright, now that we've gone through the entire story, let's move on to the key educational lessons and takeaways hidden within it. True freedom lies beyond rigid hierarchies. Sun Wukong's journey in Tensura teaches us that real strength isn't about conforming to rigid titles or systems, but staying true to your authentic self. By facing overwhelming odds with joy, optimism, and the wisdom to see past illusions, he reminds us that a light heart and an unshakable spirit are the ultimate powers to overcome any obstacle. Maybe that's all for today's video. Like if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment if you have any title suggestions for the next video. Alright, that's it, and see you in the next video. Bye.